Welcome to the Main Character Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Hamblin, main character of my own story. But this podcast isn't about me. It's about you, and all of you. Every person that has ever lived on this planet, all 8 billion people here now, all that came before us, and all that will come hereafter are the main characters in their own story. My aim is to interview people that embody living in their energy and discovering from their perspective what their perception of reality is like. Buckle up. You're about to experience the world through another main character's eyes.
Life, it's funny because when you're a young boy, like your child's age,
Yeah.
You think, oh my gosh, like I saw my grandmother, who now, and I'll say this on the mic, but who was an old woman, in your mind as a child, you look and you go, oh my God, my grandma's old, and now I'm older than where my grandma was, I'm 76. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I qualify, you never think, well, I'll ever be old, you know what I mean? But now my wife and I tease each other. We go, God, we're actually old,
But what does that even mean?
Yeah, but that's
well, right?
It's just an age. And my mom used to say that. She was very young. She went into her 90s, but she said, Pancho, age is just
it's a number. Yeah.
And your head and your consciousness or your spirit, whatever, is a whole different entity.
A whole different ball of wax.
Yeah. And so, where I'm coming to though is, we're all shaped. I really believe this now.
Yeah.
After 76 years, we're shaped from our youth.
Oh, for sure.
All products of our youth.
Yes.
What happened in that first 10 years has so much to do with the rest of your trajectory.
Amen.
Yeah. And you don't realize it because you're only 9, 7, 6.
Whatever.
And
right.
You don't know. And you don't realize how you're molded, how we're shaped and molded as a child.
Well, and I love that you bring that up, especially because you have the perspective of it.
Yes.
Over 7 decades.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've said repeatedly on this podcast is the first 7 years of your life, you're in something called a theta state.
You're into what?
It's called a theta state.
Okay,
so your
theta.
brain is actually operating on less energy.
Yeah.
And it makes you susceptible in a designed way, right, biologically, to downloading everything around you. So you're a blank computer, and you're just downloading all this programming.
Oh, constantly.
So it's family culture, it's religion, it's traumas that you experience, it's good times that you experience. But that first 7 to 10 years, you are figuring out how to do life, and then you do life the rest of your life based off of those first,
and that's
first
not
decade.
A lot. When you think about it, you know what I mean?
Right.
7 years, 8 years, you're
38.
38. So when I'm driving that, so you've had, let's say, almost 4,
almost
10,
40,
20, 30. You've got almost 30 years under, full 30 under your,
right.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
10, 20, all your 20s. It's 10, and then from 10 to 20.
Yeah.
So you almost got 4 decades, if you will, of experience. But it all came from that first 10.
Right.
And then sometimes you're trying to ditch some of the stuff that's happened.
Right.
In that first 10.
Well, and that's the hard part is realizing, because I've done a lot of, I call it reconstruction.
Yeah.
Where because I was basing life off of what I was taught.
Yeah.
Now it's that realization of, okay, hold on. Was that my idea, my choice? Or
was that
my parents?
My grandparents or whatever it may be. Yeah.
And a lot of those things are good, right?
Yeah.
Good morals, good values, good whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then there's the not good stuff.
Yeah. And you don't know that as a child. You don't really know. Like, as I was coming over the day, Brandon, most of your life is on fast forward. You don't realize it, because you're, oh my gosh, I got to go to school and I've got to get, I want to be friends with so-and-so and all these things are occurring.
Right.
And then you're pushed into life, like after college, let's say if you get the opportunity to go to college and then you're kind of on this rope-a-dope, right.
That's so, yes.
From 20 to 50, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you're kind of on this, like
reaction.
Star Wars, it's all coming at you, right?
That's so
dodging
funny.
asteroids and, what I mean?
That's totally it.
And like you say, you're making those decisions based on either false, information,
right.
And or, oh my gosh, I'm getting a couple of these right. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Out of 10, I'm getting maybe 6. Well, that's better than 4.
Right. It's so true.
Right. And then you look back now, after you plunge out and your children are now grown and successful, have children, you punch out the back end and you're going, oh my gosh, thank you. You're kind of calmed down a little bit.
Yeah.
You're back to when you were 18 or whatever.
Right.
And then you start going back over your life and you realize, oh my gosh, you always make mistakes.
Of course.
I think God puts us down here to make,
yeah.
and it's how you react and adjust to those, course, you got to make course changes, like you said, is that my decision or was that something that came out of my folks' relationship,
right?
That I wasn't aware of, but it was in there,
right?
So anyway, this is kind of what some of the stuff we'll talk about today. I think.
I hope so. I love this.
Yeah.
Well, and this was such a good intro, and I'm glad that I hit record because I think I'm going to use the vast majority of what we just said. So this is perfect setup.
Yeah, I didn't realize we were on
that we were. Yeah. I never know when to hit the actual go button. So I always start it and then I go, at some point the magic's going to happen. And that's where I'll start the video. And I think we've already captured some of that.
Yeah,
magic.
We have some magic. And as long as I know I'm on, I'll introduce, you want to introduce
Sure.
me?
No, Pancho. Yeah, please tell us who you are.
So anyway, my name is Pancho Edler and it's a very unusual name. But I was actually born in Buenos Aires in 1948. So I'm now 76. And I've never been in a podcast, and so I really don't know how this all works.
It's conversation.
It's really a conversation, and that's really all life is multiple conversations when you really break it down.
Yeah.
But so I was raised in a family with a mom and dad, and I had an older brother born in Philadelphia during the war, the Second World War. My dad was a Stanford grad engineer, and his first assignment when he came out of college was to run a factory with 3,000 men in Philadelphia.
That's a task.
Yeah, and he was, 22 maybe, 21, 22. And so they had a mechanical engineering factory to put together fuselages and wings and props.
Yeah, they were
things that
busy with the war effort.
Yeah, with their war effort, the damage to these vehicles and things would come back on freighters to Philadelphia and up into the factory.
That's wild.
Yeah, and then their 3,000 men would repackage them and
ship them back out,
and then put them back on a freighter and ship them back to the war.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that was pretty wild, and I always think that my older brother, God bless him, it was a tough time. It was. We were coming out of the Depression. It would have been like around 1943, 42, 43 in that period.
Right.
And he was in a barrack, Quonset hut, basically, and didn't get like we were talking about, your childhood experiences. He started with rust in his diapers. We'll call it, you know what I mean? And I hate to say it, but I now at 76, I can page back and see where they would have been cloth diapers.
Yeah.
And they had rust in those pipes.
Oh,
and he was, and they talk about, metal poisoning,
lead and everything else. He's getting all that.
So he had a big chip on his shoulder.
Oh, I'm sure.
When he came, so my sister was born in San Diego.
And she's younger? Older?
She's my older sister.
Older sister.
Okay. So Vern is in Philadelphia during the war, and my dad was in the Navy Air. Gail was born in San Diego when he was being pulled out of the war was over.
Yeah.
So this would have been about 1946. And then 2 years later, my dad had a job with a massive company out of California, and they sent him to South America to build food canneries, which they didn't have the knowledge of at the time.
Cool.
Those countries, it was something our country developed.
Were good at, and we wanted to help them with that infrastructure piece.
Yeah.
That's great.
So off he went and took Gail and Vern and my mom, and off they went to South America, to Buenos Aires. And we were living in a suburb of Buenos Aires. And lo and behold, I show up.
And here's Pancho.
Yeah. And Evita Perón was the dictator at the time, and all babies, English, all the different nationalities that were living there were born with Spanish names.
Oh.
Yeah. That was one of the rules, because I am an Argentinian citizen being born in their country.
Right.
And I'm an American citizen because my folks are from America.
Right.
And so my whole name is Don Pancho Francisco Chase Edler.
That's a fantastic name. That's a strong name.
Yeah. And my dad and my older brother have no middle name.
So you made up for the difference.
Yeah. I got a few extra sprinkled in.
Yeah. We sprinkled an extra one in with my daughter because we had the 3 boys.
Okay.
And then we're like, we're on our last kid. It's a daughter. We have all these names we got to add in. So she's got 2 middle names.
Cover the bases.
Got to cover the bases.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that was kind of what they thought. And, he's an infant, right?
Right.
So he's just a little package of nothingness, you know.
You get what you get.
Yeah. And they thought, well, we're only here for a limited period of time. We're going to be building these canning factories, and we'll go home to Newport Beach, California, which is where his mom lived.
Okay.
And so, and then we'll call him Frank, because Pancho means Frank, actually.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah, it's a conversion.
Oh, I did not realize that.
So we get back, and Dad, we lived in L.A. for a moment or two, and then his mom, Alice Edler, had moved to Lido Island in Newport Beach, California, which was a bay with several islands in it. She'd moved there in 1937.
Okay. Yeah.
So it would have been all sand. And
there was nothing there.
There was nothing there.
Yeah.
I mean, so grandmother's husband passed away when of cancer when my dad was in the war.
Yeah.
Era, and grandma took the life insurance, which I think was like $7,000.
Oh yeah, which then would have been fairly decent money.
In the 1930s. This was 1937.
Yeah,
and moved from the Hollywood Hills. To Newport Beach, California.
Why not?
And there was she got a house and 2 lots on the bayfront for $6,700.
That's insane.
Yeah. So anyway,
real
when my
estate
dad,
now is
kind of wild when you think of $6,700 today.
Right.
But Dad and his brother Don, there were just the 2 boys, because their dad had passed, wanted to be near their mom.
Makes sense, natural. Of course.
Yeah. So Uncle Don had two kids, and they lived about 3 blocks from us.
Very nice.
And they were the same age as our 4 kids.
Yeah.
We had 4 kids. I have a younger brother, Paul, who was born in Hollywood. And so then grandmother, was, like maybe 8 blocks away.
Right there.
Yeah.
So after all this crazy moving during the war years, you guys end up in California next to family and get to kind of have that homogenous growing up of
it was like
playing with
like
cousins.
The perfect childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, even though we had just touched on, how we're all really formulated in that first 7-10 years.
Oh yeah.
And so Brandon, my vision at the time was very limited because you're just a child.
Right. Of course.
And we were on this island. And, so I would have been now, let's say 4, 5,
I was going to say, when did you move back from Argentina? How old were you?
I would have been almost 3, let's say,
Yep.
let's say in that 2.5, 3-year-old period.
Yeah.
And, so, you're still kind of trying to put the the dots in the right spot. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
And but as you grow, we had the opportunity to certainly explore. Was one of our foundations, because my mom unfortunately was raised in a convent. Okay.
Oh, she was?
Yeah, she was at that period of time. So my mom was born in 22.
Okay. Yep.
1922.
And where?
And she was born in Los Angeles.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And my dad was born in 1920. So they were, and they
just a couple of years apart.
They both met at Stanford. Okay.
Yeah.
But mom, unfortunately, I mean, the way it was back then, her mom had two girls.
Okay.
My mom was the oldest, and then Marcia. And her husband was very successful cattleman. My mom's mom was a cattleman in the Santa Barbara area. And during the Depression, the government took the ranch.
Oh,
okay.
No.
And it actually split my mom's mom and him up. Because he was devastated. And he had cattle in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
As well. He had another ranch in Mexico. So he left and went to Mexico. And so it left my mom and Marcia and their mom alone.
Alone. Yeah.
And
with nothing.
So this would have been, now we're right in the Depression. So my mom's mom remarried and had two more girls.
Oh.
And at that time, the new husband, didn't want my mom,
former girls,
and Marcia to be part of the whole package, the family package. So they were sent to
shipped them off to a convent. No way.
So for her life, which is important, I think, to share, because it shaped my life.
Of course.
And you don't realize that, really a lot of our lineage is shaped.
Yes.
And you are a product of that.
100%.
By crick or accident, or however it ends up. But so mom spent all her grade years and high school years in this women's convent in LA, and came home, when the father wanted them to come home, let's say it would have been Easter
on a holiday
or
something. Yeah.
But she was a very sharp gal and got into Stanford pre-med, and was a great athlete. I always admired my mom. I was very grateful. She was an amazing water oriented gal as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, and especially being on the beach.
Yeah. But she grew up around, when she could, she'd get into the ocean, and she knew how to body surf. So for a kid growing up with surf out there on the peninsula, and watching my mom be able to catch these waves,
that's pretty cool.
Them, and legitimately, it wasn't like,
no,
casual.
She looked great. She was
on it.
Yeah,
she was an A body surfer. So anyway, as a little boy, you realize, oh my, okay, I got to get my A game. I got to start.
Mom can't outdo me.
Yeah,
if she can do this, I can do this. I got to
get into this mix. So, so my life as a child was shaped around this island. When I think back on, when you look back at it, when you're looking back from my elevation.
Yeah, your vantage point.
Yeah, my vantage point at this age in the 70s, you see things entirely different than when you're a child. Okay. Yeah. And so a lot of the next steps that happened to me, we were in a competitive family. My dad was kind of a workaholic, because he was an engineer.
Yeah. So he's got engineer brains. So he knows how to get in there.
It's a very different, if you've not lived with an engineer, they're just a very different, they're in a different quadrant, than the rest of the world.
Yeah. Their thinking process and the way they see the world is different.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't realize it, because you
don't know any different.
To figure out where the dots go.
Right.
And later on, I realized, how mathematical he was, and how linear, his world was, because he had a lot of pressure to, he has now 4 children.
Right.
And
he's got to provide.
Yeah. And his mom was alive, so if there was an accident there, he needed to cover that.
Yeah.
And,
a lot of responsibility.
yeah, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts. So mom was active with the church and reading to the blind and to the people up there. And we were lucky to even have a hospital in our area.
Yeah.
Hogue Hospital's there now and is very prominent.
Right.
But at the when we first moved there was no hospital.
There was nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So game on. You got it. So do you have any
some thoughts and questions off of that? So I'm assuming then you guys were Catholic?
Well, okay, that's a good
because that's another one of those
that's a
connecting the dots.
Question.
Yeah.
So because mom was in this convent, really a kind of more of against her will, I'll have to say.
Right. Yeah.
Not as a chosen place to go.
No, she would have preferred to stay with mom.
Yeah, and had a lot of trauma with nuns and punishment and such that. Yes, so she was raised a Catholic.
Yeah.
Okay, in a Catholic convent, and my dad really had no belief in a higher power of, if you will, or a spirit, you know, or in God. And so, as children, I remember mom not wanting to force us into a religion.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Because of what happened
That's what
to her. And even though she was, pretty adept at the Bible, and when I look back, I wish that she had shared more of that, but I think it was so dark for her.
Yeah.
It was a dark period for her that she chose not to touch that subject with us.
Yeah.
So basically we did go to Sunday school.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of, we went to a Presbyterian church.
Yeah.
But
it feels like maybe it was a little bit more casual than
it was
hardcore.
Much more casual. Yeah. And so my dad was raised with a boating background. His dad was a tinkerer and actually helped develop the pump. If you can imagine.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty important thing in our world today, which is kind of random, when you think about it.
Right.
Who cares about a pump?
Well, but if you don't have one.
And he was instrumental in that area.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So my dad picked up those genes.
Yes.
So my grandfather, I never knew because he had passed of cancer before I was born.
Yeah.
And so they had a boat. They had his family, my dad and Uncle Don and Grandma Alice and Vern Sr. would go out on their boat, to Catalina. We have the one island there.
Yeah.
And there was nothing on the island other than Avalon, which is where the Wrigley mansion was. Wrigley Gum bought the island.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. And then my grandfather died, and then as children, my dad had that ability to go out on a boat.
Yeah.
So he ended up buying this small wooden double planked. I think it was like 33-foot.
Oh, that's
like
good size.
Noah's Ark sailboat, kind of thing. I mean, it couldn't go too far forward in any one direction very fast. So as little kids, we had this wooden catch, and we would, mom and the four kids. I had a older brother, sister, me, and then Paul would load the boat on Thursday and Friday. Get the boat loaded with food, ice, such. And Dad would step on the boat at about 6:00 at night because he had to get off work at 5.
Yeah.
Drive an hour back to the harbor.
Yep.
And on down the dock, suit and tie. Stepping on the boat, and we'd be backing up.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Okay, so Friday night at 6:00, we would take off down the harbor and out the entrance, and then into the open ocean.
Oh, wild.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. And I'm talking 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah. So talk about young. Formative things that are happening.
Yeah, I'll never forget my younger brother. It was really rough one time. I mean, and it's very choppy, the sea between Catalina and the mainland there.
Okay.
So my dad tied my younger brother to the mast. He was so worried that Paul would fall over.
Just tie him up.
When I can solve this problem in one easy knot.
Talk about engineer brain. Yeah, just tie him up. That fixes the problem.
Let's minimize the variables here.
That's so good.
Yeah, so that was pretty funny. Anyway, so we would do this type of exercise, Brandon, 2-3 times a month.
Oh, fantastic.
He was very instrumental in a yacht club. Newport Harbor Yacht Club was the yacht club we grew up in.
Yeah.
It was, it dates back, and it was one of the most prominent sailors yacht club. It was based on sailors and fishermen.
Yeah. So that's got to be a fun community.
Oh, it was, and it was at the time we were there. I mean, at that period, there was very little commerce. There was we were kind of a satellite.
Yes,
because we had farming all the way around.
Right.
We had strawberry fields, lima bean fields, and orange groves.
Oh,
This was Orange County, California.
Right. Yeah.
So we had, literally thousands of acres, of open ag.
Yeah.
So to get to Newport, there really wasn't. It was all surface streets.
Right.
There were no freeways.
Yeah. There's no freeways there at that point. Yeah.
And so it was. Again, back to your and my thoughts, on growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole life, I didn't realize that I really enjoyed that openness.
Yeah. There's freedom there. There's
freedom.
A
lot of freedom.
Yeah.
And
beauty.
And people knew each other differently.
Yeah.
There weren't as many people, so you knew the grocer, you knew the
There was
butcher.
actually relationships.
Yeah, there were actually strong relationships.
Yeah.
We had a milkman that would come to the house, step into the house, go to the refrigerator, put down the glass milk bottle.
Yeah.
And as a boy, you're going, wow, that's a stranger. But, he became less of a stranger.
Right.
Because he was coming and going out of our home,
Well, and that's something that I talk to people a lot about is that idea of a high trust society. And the biggest thing that I noticed, because I came over from the west side, so between Portland and Seattle, I was always along I-5.
Okay.
And sometimes I lived in rural areas. Sometimes I lived closer to the city.
Yeah.
But here, there's a pretty clear demarcation line where if you're in Coeur d'Alene, I feel pretty safe.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I joke I could leave my wallet and my keys on my dash, leave the car unlocked. Nothing's going to happen in Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah, you want to be careful with that.
Well, and true, friend. Right. And this is, I'm being extreme here.
Yeah.
But in Seattle, definitely in Seattle, but Spokane, my stuff would be gone in 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Your car too.
And my car too.
Yeah.
And so there's just that concept of when you have a smaller population where you get to know each other and you become a little bit more dependent on each other.
Yeah.
You have a higher trust society where when you just have oodles of people, you're just on top of each other.
Yeah, and you don't have those bonds.
You don't have the bonds.
And the bonds really kind of come back to your respect. You know, kind of there's a respect that each human really should have for each other, And I think what happens when you get over 50,000 or 100,000, that starts getting watered down.
Yeah.
And it starts getting shredded.
Yes.
And it disappears, quite frankly.
And it disappears. Yeah.
It disappears because you don't know. You're looking out there as let's say, even as an adult, you're going, how do I fit into this menagerie?
Right.
This maze.
Yeah.
And so I'll take that further on,
Please.
Because so as our little community started to grow, I was obviously growing up too.
Right.
And it grows so slowly that you're not mapping the growth.
Right.
No family is sitting there going, oh, okay, they built this over here and I better put that down on my map.
Yeah.
That little block, I better, that's gone.
Yeah.
And so in time, Newport Beach was just discovered, and corporate America from all over the United States went, hey, why are we living in Minnesota or Wisconsin when we could have our headquarters right out there in Newport Beach, California?
Yeah.
And they have an airplane. Our airport had grown.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, there's freeways now. And all of our ag was starting to fade into residential homes.
Right.
Okay. So now we can bring our 3,000 employees from over here and put them over there. Yeah. And in short order, really, when you think of eternity,
right?
I mean, we're talking from, let's say, 1960 now to 2000, probably close to maybe 8 or 9 million people moved to our area.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, when you were only having, like, I think I interfaced with, when we were kids, maybe 2,500.
Right.
I mean, so you knew the barber's name, and all these different things. So, Brandon, I'll just kind of jump into now. So how did I come up here is that, and I'll touch back. We'll go back.
Yeah, we'll
kind of
bounce around.
Forth, but all of that information of childhood, that mindset where you are.
Yeah.
As I got further up in age, and then I was into raising children. And then after raising children, I was realizing that the community that I had grown up, the entire area that I'd grown up in,
you didn't recognize
had changed.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no recognition of what was there before.
Right.
And the relationships were gone. The barber, you didn't know, the grocer, everything was changing so fast for me. And I'm going to just call it on myself, is that the frequency for me had changed so radically that I was kind of lost. I hate to say it. I was kind of, I wasn't grounded anymore.
Yeah, that's well said.
I was, for the last several years down in Southern Cal, I told my wife, I said, babe, I've got to make a change because I'm kind of losing it.
Feel adrift.
Yeah. I got to call it on myself.
Yeah.
And her family, she had Carla, they're Sicilian descent, all of the Italians.
Yeah, cool.
We came up here for a reunion up here to Coeur d'Alene, and Carla lived in Cougar Gulch.
Okay, yep.
Okay, was a nurse at Kootenai Health.
Yeah.
In the 70s.
Oh, she had perfect timing.
Yeah, so
she preceded
she'd
everything.
Been here the whole time, watched, Post Falls and all these little.
I mean, this was all farmland.
Yeah, this was all farmland.
Yeah.
So a number of family members came up. I think we had 60 or 70.
Ooh, that's a good reunion
number. And so we had brought up with us my wife's niece and her husband on the airplane. Okay, and we get over to the house. We're going to stay at the house up in Cougar Gulch.
Yeah.
And Rich said, Pancho, do you want to go fishing with me in the morning? And I said, well, what time? This is the night before, right?
Yeah.
And, well, what time are you leaving? 5 o'clock. I said, don't even look at my door when you go by. don't even make a noise. I'll be sound asleep.
Yeah.
So I gave him the keys and off he went. And so he went off fishing and came back. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, I was a realtor, high-end realtor. And we'll get back on that in a minute. But he said, Pancho, when we get home, I want you to sell my house. I'm coming here.
Oh.
And so this would have been about 2016.
Took him less than 24 hours to figure out.
Less than an hour. I said, Rich. And I'm like maybe, I don't know, 15 years older than him. I said, Rich, what did you see?
Yeah.
Give me some light.
Exactly.
Shine whatever you saw on me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And he goes, Pancho, I was down on the stream and there was nothing around but we, reeds and the water running, and the sun was coming up, and I was casting, and out to the right of me came a deer that walked across this little 8-foot expanse of water, and up into the other side like I was nothing. Yeah. And there was a moment somehow, some way, that it just was his light got turned on.
Yep, this is the
and
spot.
He said, I am so done with where he lived in the bigger, Southern California region. And he was a licensed electrician.
Okay, yeah.
So he had a very responsible career. But it had enough too. Just had enough, and was aging. All of us are aging faster in those kind of environments.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stress and anxiety and
toxicity,
being adrift and not grounded, and so no surprise that people age faster.
So, Brandon, basically, probably 20 of our family members have now migrated.
No,
yes,
way.
Up into the Kootenai County.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
So, a quick rabbit hole on that. How do you guys do with the winters?
Oh, okay. So that's a great point. So coming from a sun belt, that has been a transition.
Yeah,
let's be real.
And it's not
growing
72
up,
year round.
Say that again.
It's not 72 degrees year round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you bring up a point. Southern Cal at that latitude, you don't have seasons.
Right.
At 20 degrees, you don't have seasons.
No, you're doing the same thing year round.
Yeah. It's oh, wow. Was that a rain squall? Yeah, we did feel rain a couple of days ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back.
All right.
It's sunny. It's still 80. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you don't realize that the rest of the world really is into seasonal change.
Oh, yeah.
And storms and such. So, with my background, which we haven't delved into, the story, the main story, I would have been now in my 60s, late 60s, when I came to this realization I needed to make a change.
Yeah.
And so when I came up here, most of my sailing buddies said I would never be able to handle the winter.
Yeah.
And what I love about the 48 degree parallel line is that we have 4 distinct seasons.
Very much so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you can almost set your clock, to, it is winter.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And it's right on time.
Yeah. And I'll segue into a buddy of mine that I went to college with, Robbie Hind, ran the Parker Ranch on the Big Island.
Oh, cool.
So he was a roommate of mine, in college.
Yeah.
And I asked Robbie, I said, Robbie, tell me about this surf over there. Cause I was a surfer guy.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Took after mom.
And he goes, Pancho, I don't like the water. I don't go to the water. I live up on a cattle ranch at the top of the island.
Away from the water.
Yeah, I don't even barely know how to swim.
Oh, no.
I'm sure he does. But so it was a mind blower for me. And so he just came over here because he hunts in Montana.
Oh, yeah.
And he came through with all his trophies and such,
Yeah.
Stayed at the house. And this is like 50 years ago, right? 55 years ago that we were in college.
Yeah.
And he goes, Pancho, so tell me, where, he's kind of, where do you travel to, and tell me what your secrets are. I told Robbie, I said, Robbie, I don't have to travel anywhere. The seasons, come to me. It's going to be like, I'll be in Switzerland in about a month. Right? I don't have to take a plane.
Yeah.
And not that we get deep snow here.
Yeah, it hasn't been terrible.
We're talking less than 10 inches.
Right. Yeah.
Depending on what part of the valley you're in.
Where you're at.
The prairie. But so for us, it's a new chapter, and I love adventure.
Yeah.
And so to see the snow, I mean, is a big thing. I was a skier as a kid.
Oh, yeah. Oh, cool.
And but that was just like on weekends, right? You go for a week and go skiing. This is like you got like what, the better part of 4 months, maybe around the cold and deep cold. And so, yeah, I really appreciate it. And I think the big thing for me, Brandon, is the animals, I mean, let's get down, get down and dirty. Okay.
Yeah.
The animals live up here. They could go anywhere they want.
Yes.
Really.
Right.
They can walk anywhere.
Right.
And so, as a kid that saw maybe a lizard, or a horny toad, buried in the sand, and, sure, we had seagulls, but, to get up here and see, the elk, herds of 200, 300 elk running through the hills,
beautiful.
And a visit by a moose and their baby, you're just kind of pinching yourself.
Well, we got wild turkeys.
Yeah,
that was turkeys, I was downtown and I'm like, there's turkeys by the library. What are these turkeys doing here?
And not just one.
No, it's a bunch of them.
Yeah. 20, you're going, wow, no. So there's always this wow factor I find up here. And that kind of softens the winter.
Yes, for sure.
And then you come right into spring, and the spring is so magical, because it's been buried. The ground's been buried.
And we're all ready for some sun.
Yeah.
For some blue skies.
Grass is green and all the flowers that are coming out.
Yeah.
It's just, and as you age, I mean, those things mean things to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because again, being over on the west side, 9 months out of the year, it's gray and raining, drizzling.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and you get this
rain.
magical summer for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then it's gray and drizzly the rest of the time.
It's too short.
It's too short.
Yeah.
And so I do love the seasons here because I used to have seasonal depression. And now that winter is set on a clock, you got 4 months of winter. I just kind of lean into it.
Yeah.
Because it does provide its own unique beauty.
Mm-hmm.
It's cold. I'm not a fan of being cold.
Get your clothes on.
Exactly. I
go
get
to
layers.
Costco.
Definitely going to Costco. But that's what life does anyways. We have seasons in life. And so it kind of gives you on a year scale what that's going to feel like. You're going to have death and cold and all that stuff, and that's winter.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have the exact opposite, and you're going to have the seasons in between, and that's life.
Yeah.
And you get to experience it with nature.
Yeah.
And
that's really very true. The seasons do kind of it's difficult because I have friends that are still back in Southern Cal, and we've all shotgunned out into the world.
Yeah.
But there's some form of you're more attached here.
Yeah.
I feel to life. I think the word is engaged, attached.
Yeah.
Because like let's say in February when you're kind of over
it. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll be frank with you. Oh, well, this is only, come on, Pancho, slap yourself a little bit. Get, kind of
we're almost out of
together,
this.
buddy.
Right.
This is only a month left. You
right.
know, and you're going to punch into this green.
Yeah.
And so you do take it in season, so to speak, and you take the rough and then you gain the appreciation for how beautiful it is that you're coming into. But I really don't find my summers as, when I was a kid, summers was like, the magical.
Oh,
that was the magical place.
You're out of school.
Yeah,
you're going to go play.
And it was always sunny.
Yeah.
So game on, and we'd go to the beach and soak rays and play in the water. Up here, your body shifts a little bit in that you don't want the heat.
Right.
Your chemistry. I love the sun on your shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
I love the warmth, but I don't necessarily want to go down and soak rays.
Right.
Because the access into the water, I mean, it's a little cooler, it's fresh water.
Yeah.
And we're abundantly blessed with fresh water.
Yes, we are.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good.
Yeah. So do you want to go back to the main?
Yeah, let's go back.
Okay.
Well, and let's get there because we've got your younger years. What were the teenage years like?
Okay. So now we're back and I had the ability. I was body surfing and swimming in the bay. I was aquatic. when I got to high school, I went out for the water polo team. We had
Nice.
the Newport Harbor High School has had and still does have an amazing history in aquatics.
Yeah.
Okay, because all the kids were raised
That's
in
what
the
they're raised on.
community,
Yeah.
surfing and sailing and swimming. So as a freshman, you're just like this,
You're
nobody, right?
Yeah.
Actually, less than a nobody.
Yeah.
You basically had balls bouncing off your head, from the older guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Underclassmen.
And these guys were, like the mega guys, on campus, right?
Yeah.
But very competitive. To make the team, to see your name on the board, it was just you wanted it. You know what I mean? If you were built that way,
Right?
Okay, and so played water polo. My older brother was the bruiser of the family. I told you.
Yes.
And he was a football wrestler. Guy, okay. And so I wrestled as a freshman. I wrestled all 4 years and played water polo and swam all 4 years in high school.
Oh, very cool.
And we set a team that I was on set the state championship in swimming.
Congrats.
Broke records. And so we were really grinding, quite frankly, Brandon.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 7,000 yards a day,
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking on the clock, not a casual
No,
casual
you're
walk
performing.
in the park. Yeah, it was like I would get up in the morning and I was a bike rider. I was younger. I was a year ahead because when we came back from Argentina, I was born in December and the cutoff was on the 1st. Well, I was born on the 7th.
Oh.
So my mom, the way the numbers look down there, it's a 1 with a little line is a 7.
Yeah.
And Mom said, no, that's the 1st. So into school I went.
I love the way your mom played the system.
Yeah. No, he's good. Yeah, he's good for that.
Yeah. We're putting him in a year early. Yeah.
Just basically I would say I was really excited about athletics and playing, was a big thing for me.
Yeah, having fun.
Yeah, having fun. But I think there's a part of being raised in that kind of environment that you're naive. Let's be, I have to call it on myself.
Yeah. Well, there's some street smarts that come from being raised in a big city and all that stuff. But there's some innocence lost too. So which mix do you want?
You got to take the person you are,
Of course.
So, things that you make mistakes when you're naive, you don't understand.
Right.
So, in 1961, there was a World's Fair in Seattle.
Yes, there was.
And my older brother had just graduated from Newport Harbor High School.
Yeah.
And I had just graduated from middle school, and it was still summer, so I hadn't had my 13th birthday, so it was 12. I was 12, and Vern was like, let's say, but he was 5.5, so he would have been 18.
Yeah.
Okay. So, God bless Vern. He goes, Pancho, why don't we take the train and a back? I mean, we didn't have backpacks back then, but we had a duffel bag.
Yeah.
And let's go to the World Fair.
Let's take a trip.
Yeah.
It's an adventure.
I mean, we both graduated. And so
I love it.
Family, friends were in Seattle on, is there a Lake Washington? Is that where the
Lake Washington.
Yeah. So we were on Mercer Island. We knew these people and I'd never met them.
Yeah.
So up we go on this train by ourselves.
I love it.
And we get there, and the family came and gathered us from the train platform.
Yeah.
And down we go to their home, and we slept at the bottom out on the ground, which was near the lake, and they were raised up. Their property was elevated.
Yeah.
Anyway, as kids are, they, it wasn't very long. We went to the World's Fair, and you're just a little kid, and you.
Yeah.
I think maybe 2 hours later, we went, I think we've had enough. World Fair.
We took this big trip. We're here at the World Fair, and we're done.
Yeah, we're all done. Yeah. Vern, and so Vern goes, Pancho, why don't we just hitchhike to Alaska?
What?
Yeah. And I went,
you're 12.
Well,
this is so
good. Yeah,
good.
I went, really? And because you're just, you're
your older brother,
springboarding off this other guy, and
why not?
I mean, what doesn't he know? He's 18. I'm only 12.
Yeah, he's got it all figured out.
Yeah, he's got it all figured out. So and he was a tough guy. I mean, he was a no nonsense, didn't take enemies kind of thing. It was,
rough and tumble.
Yeah. Oh yeah, rough and tumble.
Yeah.
So he calls my dad, tells Dad the plan,
and Dad says,
Dad goes, well, how much money do you have?
Oh yeah, that's smart.
Well, Vern had come up, I think, with $125, to the World's Fair.
Yeah.
And I think he still had 115, I mean, we hadn't done anything.
Right.
And I think I had $75, as I recall. So we were, wealthy beyond.
Oh yeah, measure, you guys are set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dad was probably on his second, gin and tonic.
Right. Yeah.
I went, good. Maybe this is a good way. Yeah, you guys just stay out there. The tension at the house is less. You just go on up there.
Have a good time.
Be my guest, and
it's so
call
wild.
Me, every 10 days or something like that.
I love. There's the term helicopter parent now.
Yeah.
Right, where the people are just overly involved with their kids' life.
Yes.
And I've seen maps of, like current generations, can they even ride their bike in their neighborhood? You go out a generation, they have the whole neighborhood.
I have grandkids, so I see it. And I actually cringe. I really do. I mean, because my mom would say to the three boys, boys, after breakfast, I want you to leave the house.
Yes.
And do not come back to the house until 5 o'clock.
Yes.
And so you're going, oh, that's a green light.
You've got free reign. Go. Bye.
And don't go off the island, let's say, in this case.
Yeah,
but the island was sizable.
Yeah.
So you could get in as much mischief as you could find.
Yeah.
And I think that, Brandon, and we really don't know each other for the people that are watching.
Yeah,
this.
No, this is the first time we've had.
First time I've met Brandon.
Yeah.
And he has 4 children. And I was raised with 4 children. So I think there's a dimension that parents have by giving children that kind of freedom, like we had, where you have to make choices.
Yes.
Right? Mom's not here.
Right.
Oh my gosh, let's see now. I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
Your brain starts to engage and grow differently.
Yes.
Than having a helicopter mom.
Totally.
Where I ask a question now to a grandchild and the mom steps in and answers. And you're going, wait a minute.
I didn't ask you. I asked, I wanted their perspective.
I'm asking Joe over here.
Yeah.
Give me a chance.
Well, and having that freedom teaches autonomy.
Yeah.
Teaches common sense.
Yeah.
Teaches critical thinking.
Yeah.
All things that are lacking in society now.
Yeah, you knew who the bullies were in town.
Well, I'm avoiding that street.
I need to make a directional change right now.
Right now.
I'm going to move around this block and go around that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And I'm going to pedal fast.
Yeah, and I'm not looking back if he yells at me. I'm going to keep moving forward. So, yeah.
I love that your dad then gave you this opportunity.
Yeah, gave us the permission.
Go to Alaska.
And off we go.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, this kind of sets the stage for later. Okay?
I was going to say,
I'm 12 years old, and I'm now, Vern and I, hitchhiking back then in Canada wasn't really, I don't think it was accepted, actually, when I look back at it.
Okay.
They didn't, I don't think they liked the idea of people hitchhiking.
Yeah.
And we found that out in about 5 hours. When we were sitting on the road for 5, and I went, Vern, this is not working.
Let me
raise my hand. Let me have a quick drink of water.
Please.
Yeah. Excuse me. So we ended up going back into town and going to a trucking station.
And was this what, Victoria, or is this?
Okay, so yes, we had gone from Seattle and we took a ferry to Vancouver Island.
Or Vancouver, yeah.
Yeah, and Empress Hotel. We stayed in a flop house behind the.
Cool.
I think it was a $7 a night hotel.
Yeah.
But we did go over to the Empress Hotel and have tea. You know,
oh, wonderful!
And,
you have to have that experience.
Pretend like you're in the
Yeah.
in the mix, right?
That's right.
So then we took a different ferry back to Vancouver proper.
Yeah.
So we would have been in Vancouver.
Vancouver. Yeah.
Yeah. And from there, the truckers said, if you empty this truck and reload it, I'll take you to
further north.
Kamloops,
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. We don't even know what Kamloops is. So it turned out we did it just what the truckers asked us to do. Well, it turned out Vern went on one truck and I went on a different truck, to Kamloops.
Oh, okay.
But we were going to get in the same yard,
yeah.
Emptying yard. So we were a couple days later and I got there first. So I'm working in the yard, emptying trucks for these guys.
Oh my gosh.
And then Vern shows up
Yeah.
and it's like, wow,
it worked.
So it was a learning experience,
Yeah.
needless to say. And then we went on and got all the way to the Yukon. One of our neighbors had an aunt in Juneau.
Yep.
So from the Yukon, the Whitehorse Yukon, we took a ferry down to Skagway and then worked our way back down into Juneau because there were really no direct routes to Juneau at the time.
Yeah.
And the hotel we were staying in, which was, again, maybe $8, we really bumped our game,
Yeah.
We got on a Welcome Traveler radio station.
Cool.
Yeah. And they said, we can't believe you're here. I mean, you're still alive,
Yeah.
we
You made
went
it.
up to Alaskan Highway, which is like animals. And I mean, it's totally radical compared to where we live.
Yeah.
Right.
To California.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were seeing things that young kids shouldn't see.
Well, but what a cool experience to
it
have.
was pretty wild.
You see beautiful part of the country. It's totally different.
Oh, and
you're
wild.
getting exposed
wild.
to
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
just
mean-
like having your eyes opened almost.
Yeah, bears and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And so anyway, on this radio station, my older brother was smart enough to say, "Hey, anybody going back to the United States, we'd love a ride."
Radio hitchhiking.
Yeah, I think he was tired of the bus. Excuse me, the truck.
And loading and unloading.
Yeah, loading and unloading.
Yeah.
Exactly. So sure enough, that night we got a phone call, and we were in this guy's 1955 Chevy the next day. And in the glove box was a Luger.
Oh yeah.
Forget. So Vern and him tag teamed, and
drove back
Vern
down.
would be in the back sleeping. I'd be the shotgun guy,
Yeah.
carrying on conversations, and then they would just
Rotate.
rotate. And we went straight through.
Oh, that's
straight down
so
the
good.
Alaskan Highway back to Seattle. Yeah, it was. So anyway, that was one of the blocks that really opened up, really not really fully and, understanding it all.
You're
'Cause
right.
Still a little kid,
Yeah.
But grateful for the opportunity.
Of course.
I mean, now when I look back now, even though we had a lot of days where it was cold and wet and you're going, what am I
I want to be back on the beach in the
yeah,
sun.
why aren't I in, with the girls in Southern California? What did I do wrong?
Right.
And you always question,
Right. How did I end up here?
Yeah. And we all make wrong turns. So,
Yeah.
So anyway, what kept going on is I kept on in my sports. Okay.
Yeah.
And the 2 summers later, I was asked, because we were in a small bay,
Yeah.
to crew on a sailboat from La Paz, which is down on the Baja,
Okay.
the peninsula.
Yeah.
Bring it back up around Cabo San Lucas, take it down to Cabo, and then deliver it 1,000 miles north into San Diego.
Cool.
So I would have been 14 at this point, and I was on an 80-footer sloop rig, and that was my first time really to witness how the Pacific Ocean can treat you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and fortunately I wasn't in charge, but it was just chaos.
And I was going to say, when you say how the Pacific can treat you, what do you mean by that?
Yeah,
Because for the people that don't know what that means.
Yeah. Well, It came like basically as a major slap in the face, about a full roundhouse slap, not a
and
sock.
Is that as soon as you leave Cabo and you get out into the open ocean and you're like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So from La Paz, it's kind of a casual sail. You're in the lee of the wind.
Yeah.
And it's no seas to speak of,
right.
and warm. And I'm going, wow, I can take a lot of this.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I think I can cruise, and we're on this, and I'm all of 14 now.
Right, yeah. You've got it figured out.
I have this figured out.
Yeah.
So we get down there and down to Cabo, and there was nothing in Cabo at the time.
I was going to say at the time, Cabo was not the hot spot.
Hacienda Hotel.
Yeah.
End of story. And so we, they call it reef the main down to a smaller amount of sail area.
Okay.
And prepare. We have duct tape. We're going to duct tape the portholes.
Perfect.
And,
that's all you need.
Make sure we're seaworthy and get the dinghies lashed down.
Yeah.
And so we go down to the end of the peninsula and out into the ocean, and just got our butts handed to us.
And how many of you are there?
We would have had probably eight
okay.
on board.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, all men. And so after about 3 hours of beating into this sea, and getting slapped down, and the boat was, the decks were leaking and portals were leaking, and all down below, which is supposed to be your safe spot, was wet. My dad and a couple of the other men said, okay, let's go back. Go back to Cabo.
Yeah.
And so we turned around. Went back around into the lee of the peninsula.
Yeah.
And dropped anchor and went to sleep, and that next day we spent the whole day doing another
prep of the boat.
Kind of, view and prep on the boat, and reefed down more, got a smaller sail on the bow. And at midnight we left, because sailors always think the wind will go to sleep.
Oh,
night,
I mean, of course that's how that works. Yeah, definitely.
But I don't think they tell the ocean gods about that. So anyway, the bottom line is that this was going to be it. We were prepared. We're not going to come back.
Yeah.
So off we went, and pretty much the same weather, at midnight. But we got into it, and off we went, and I think it was like 5 days of hard weather north.
Yeah.
And it's 1,000 miles. So we might have done maybe 180 miles a day. On the ground.
And how far out do you go from the coast?
So you so you tack out initially, tack out away from land.
Yeah.
And go for, let's say, a day.
Okay.
Okay. So that would be, let's say you're 75 to 150 miles off the beach.
Yep.
Okay. Then you tack back.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is where I really started getting the navigation. My uncle was our navigator.
Okay, cool.
On board.
Yeah.
And I started, looking at the charts, and watching the measurements and calculations. And I was in advanced math in high school. So I had my trigonometry and my calculus already kind of under the belt.
Yeah.
And the responsibility, of being the navigator is a different position on the boat.
For sure.
Than being a driver,
right.
Let's say, or a cook, You have different roles, so.
Yeah. And everybody needs to fulfill their roles
to
make this thing click.
Yeah. And there's only one captain, and he's making the decision. So a lot of, you're learning a lot of the, kind of like sports, you have a coach, he's the boss. And we're all just the athletes.
Right. Yeah. And then depending on if it's individual or team sport, well, this guy's our shooter. Yeah. Or this guy's our point guy.
Playmaker.
This guy's the defender. This guy, right? Like everybody.
Yeah. Defensive guys.
Yeah.
So this is similar to that. And so to break it down with eight men, we had 2 watches, they call it, where one team is down below, one watch is down below.
Yeah.
sleeping, resting, doing nothing.
Yeah.
And the other 4 are taking care of business on deck.
Yeah. And then you can rotate.
And then you rotate, and they call it a Swedish watch, where you go 6 hours on in the day, let's say 6 to 12, and then from 12 to 6 is another shift, they call it. And then you rotate 3/4 at night, which puts you into a different time pattern the following day.
Yes.
And the Norwegians came up with that.
Oh.
And the Swedes.
Cool.
So we followed that, and we finally got to San Diego. And so then the following year from that, so 14 at 15, I got asked to fly to Honolulu by a boat, a family in San Diego that was racing down there on a 100-foot wooden vessel called Novia del Mar. And I was asked that summer of my 1965 to fly to Honolulu, and then I would be on the boat as a deckhand.
Yeah, cool.
Okay? And which was, now I'm a little more mature, and
one more year of experience.
We just won the state championship in swimming and water polo. So you feel like you got a little more skin in the game. We'll call it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was living on the deck most of the time, on a sail bag.
Yeah.
And just so grateful that you don't realize at the time what all this means. Really,
right.
You're still living.
Perspective, that's not normal for most teenagers. That's not what most people get to do.
And even in our bay, nobody was doing that kind of stuff.
Well, and I'm seeing connections here because your dad has engineer brain. And so you just said you were really good at math, right? You were ahead in math.
Right.
So that you get that from your dad.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Guaranteed.
Your mom, the adventurer, the one that likes to be out on the water, you got those skills from her.
Yes.
You have the family boat that the 33-footer?
It was a 33-foot wooden boat.
So you have that experience, and then you're adding these bigger boats on. And so it's all these pieces adding up.
All little teeny pieces.
Yeah.
And you're not really at the time, Brandon, you're not really formulating the puzzle, because you're just living through.
You're just there.
What I call like Star Wars. It's all coming at you.
Right.
And you're just playing little components.
Yes.
Little pieces. Oh wow, I'm going to jump into this.
Yeah.
And it's only going to be 6 weeks, but that's one of the pieces that builds your personality.
Yes.
It builds your decision making later on.
Totally.
And you're not with parents. You're doing something on your own.
Right.
And you're going to get what do you call it? Where the tread hits the pavement.
Yes.
Quickly.
Yeah.
On a bad decision.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to react. It's going to happen rapidly.
Yeah.
So,
And then you're reacting based off past experience.
Hey, I need to be on the boat more, I need to get off the land and stay on the boat.
For sure.
So, so we were very fortunate. The man that owned the boat was extremely wealthy. And so he wanted to. Rarely did he ever commit to the whole summer on his boat.
Okay. Yep.
So he was at an age where this summer he decided that he was going to remain and live on the boat and come full passage back to San Francisco.
Oh.
Make the passage home.
Yeah.
Which most owners would never do because it's so much work.
Yeah.
To go up what we call
They're happy
uphill.
to go out to Honolulu and enjoy that, but then on the way back,
Yeah, I'll get on an airplane and have the luxury of a cocktail on the way home.
Yeah.
I'll be there in 4 hours,
Well, and that's one of those, Alcatraz is famous because you weren't swimming off of that island and you're in the bay.
Yes.
And so talk about trying to get into San Francisco Harbor or anything. It can't be that much better.
Oh, you have no idea the tides that come out, the currents that come out of San Francisco.
Yeah.
So that summer we were able to go to all the different islands, and this man had a reputation on all the islands.
Uh-huh.
So we were invited to parties and of course, you're as a kid, you're looking at all these experiences and there were some just classic moments,
I'm sure.
Just classic moments of that'll go down that are just embedded in my mind.
Oh yeah, you can still see it. You put yourself back in that situation.
And I'll bring up one right now.
Yeah.
So there were some 18-year-olds on the boat that were students at Oregon, which is where you had been raised or had spent some time.
Yeah.
And so they were big, they were the go-to guys, if you will.
And
there were two kids my age.
Yep.
The 18-year-olds, and then we had a cook, a professional cook, Stanley, and Sam was our professional boatman.
Okay.
Driver and navigator and such, and then the owner.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're now up in Honolulu Bay in 1965, and we got the night off because tomorrow night we're going to go ashore and have a party at this family on the beach, okay, at their home.
Yeah.
But tonight you kids can go and take the dinghy and go on in and do whatever you're doing.
Have fun.
Of course, there's nothing there, other than this one little hotel at the top of this cliff.
Yeah.
Okay. That had a stairwell up the side of the cliff to the restaurant. So we get there. There's a river coming out, a stream coming out of Honolulu Bay, and it's very, very picturesque. I mean, the mountains behind and the waterfalls and palm trees.
Paradise.
And it's total paradise. So we can't go up the river with our dinghy, or the 18-year-olds decided we couldn't. So we beached the boat on the main bay area.
Yeah.
And pulled it up and tied it to a palm tree.
Yeah.
So now we're walking towards this, we'll call
stairwell.
it a mini resort, in 1965. And we realized that we have to go across the river to get to it.
Oh.
Okay. And so they had a tiki pontoon boat, okay, with the fringe and things like that. And they had a little outboard, and there were other people on our side. So we moved down and got on this pontoon boat and went across, maybe it was, a football field, okay.
Yeah.
And got on the beach and off we went up to the top, and so the guys are drinking. I don't think I was drinking at that time.
Yeah.
Either
way, no judgment.
Yeah. So we're all there. I'm kind of a perimeter, peripheral,
observing the situation.
More observing at this point.
Yeah.
And so we were around 9:00 at night, let's say. It's just dark and, starting to get dark. And we go, the guys go, "Hey, we're leaving."
Okay.
And, yeah, I'm part of that,
Yeah,
So,
I'm going with the older guys.
Yeah, we're going with the team. And the guy at the bar was, well, you're going to have to get back to the other side on your own.
Oh, pontoon boat.
Yeah, and it was there was a little bit of a attitude, we'll call it, underlying current, going on there. And I'm not really fully adept at all these, these elements yet.
Right.
So I just remember the guys going, "Fine, no problem," So we work our way back down these steps, to the beach, and sure enough, there's the tiki pontoon boat right over there on the beach,
just sitting there.
And all of us know how to drive one of those.
Oh no!
Do you see this, Brandon? Can you see this shaping up?
Oh, I see it.
Oh yeah,
clear as day.
And we're all teenagers, right?
Yeah.
So we're running now towards the tiki boat, And,
nobody's going to tell us, though.
And we look back, and there's a guy running down the steps because he's seeing us running towards his.
He knows what's
ponga.
happening.
I mean, I keep calling it a ponga. It's a pontoon boat. We get there, and one guy's on the back on the engine, trying to get it fired up. We got guys trying to push the boat back into the stream, right?
Yeah.
And this guy's closing on us. He's running down the beach, and he's pretty big fella, And I'm going, "Oh,
not
man,
somebody to mess
there's
with."
going to be there's going to be a collision any second right here, you know. And so I'm on the boat now. I mean, I'm not going to be the first encounter.
No.
Because I'd had that with my older brother many times.
Yeah.
So I knew to get to the back of the boat.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm in the back, and now the engine's engaged.
Yep.
And we're coming off the sand with the engine in reverse, and this guy's 20 feet from the 10 feet, 5 feet, and going to grab the front of the boat.
Yeah.
And one of the 18-year-olds grabs a hold of a fire extinguisher and powders this guy with white powder. He got there just in time to take this powder cake right across his face and upper body. And I'm in shock. I mean, because I've seen a few things, but I've never seen one like this.
No. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it was classic. And this guy was,
just fuming.
Yeah, a few expletives later, and we were all I was on the deck laughing.
I was going to say, yeah,
we're safe. We're in the water, and he's over there. We're over here, and we got more distance separating us as we go across, to the other side, and we're going to beach the boat, and make it safe. They're not we're not stealing the boat.
He can swim across and grab it if he wants.
And so we make our way back to our dinghy, and get back to the mothership, right? No harm, no foul.
Right.
Yeah. Other than I think, they knew where we were.
I was going to say they know the guy on the boat.
Huh?
They had to have the owner of the boat had a reputation,
that
right?
We were from. They could see, they could put it together.
Yeah.
We were from one of the race boats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we explained what we had done to the owner, and he said, "You know what? I think we're just going to lift anchor and sail on. Right? We're done here." So,
oh gosh,
so we came
funny.
back across the Pacific Ocean that summer and into San Francisco, and it was on a 100-foot boat. It with a big, massive diesel engine. It was relatively passive, I'll call it. Okay,
that's good.
And so there is a high pressure area in the middle of the ocean that all the wind basically spins off of.
Yeah.
This big high pressure area, which I'd never even heard of at 15.
And that's got to be what? Pretty far south, but it's south of Hawaii?
No. So it's between Hawaii and San Francisco.
Oh, it is.
And it's moving. It's like an amoeba.
Okay.
So it's moving in the ocean.
You never quite know where it's at unless you
never. Well, so at that time, we didn't have. You got to remember, there were no satellites.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, so there was recognition of what they call isobars.
Yeah.
That had wind lines that were connected, and they would map out where the high was. Okay. Yeah. And so Sam put us right into the high.
Oh, really?
With the boat, because he could power up.
Yeah.
And bring us into even though the wind wasn't right, he could power through the wind, go head on.
Yeah.
Because we have the engine.
Yeah.
So we went into the high, and in the high, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it's as smooth as glass, literally as a glass tabletop.
That's so.
Yeah, and you were just in 40 knots of breeze and, wind and kind of, like helter-skelter into this calm.
So it's the eye of the storm. It's calm in the center of this thing.
Yeah, it's the eye of the storm.
That's but good luck getting in and out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you've got that
engine.
And
it can move around. So as a young boy, I'll call it now at 15, we take the sails down, we're going to clean up the deck, make everything ship shape.
Yeah.
And I realized that there are things floating in the ocean. There's things floating out there from Japan. Glass balls that they would blow on the islands and little harbors, fishing villages.
Yeah.
They would build these glass balls that would hold the nets up.
Yeah.
And then when they got a full net of fish, they would just cut the bulbs off. They meant nothing to them because they could blow another ball.
Yeah. And now those are collectors.
Oh my gosh, I was like this kid on fire. I was with binoculars on the bow of this 100-footer on the bowsprit.
Yeah.
And I was like glued to this bowsprit for the next 3 or 4 days while we were in this high. And we got 75 glass balls.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, I still have one to this day that's this big.
Oh, yeah.
And then some smaller ones. But I had, the owner, he knew that I was, key in the success of this. And they had a big dinghy, so we were just loading when they'd come up, they had what I call like a big butterfly net, but it was a seagoing butterfly net that you could put it down into we'd slow the boat down, come up on a ball, and we would plunge this butterfly net kind of thing into the ocean and pull out the last ball. Of course, it wasn't smooth. It had barnacles and crabs. So all of that was on deck now. We had to, clean that up. Anyway,
Oh, that's so
that's they
really
were sea
cool.
treasures,
Oh, yeah.
And that was a big, for me, I think it was kind of magical. That, wow, and the owner gave me probably 15 of the 75.
Oh, yeah.
He said, Pancho, you were the one that was responsible. You just take on home 15 of these suckers.
Yeah, that's great.
So, so there was some treasure there. And so then I was done pretty much at my childhood was coming, my in-house childhood was coming to an end.
Yeah.
And my priorities, unfortunately, weren't in the right categories,
Well, I was going to say, because at that point you kind of have okay, this is what I want to do with my life, or some sense of something typically.
No.
But is that college? Is that girls? Is that
nothing?
It's nothing.
I have zero on, out there in front of me.
Yeah. Okay. Just a world of possibility.
A lot of pressure from my dad going,
I'm sure.
Dude, you're going to be graduating. Where are you going?
Yeah.
Because there was no, you're going up to high school next.
Yeah.
That was pretty basic. So, so I was in a kind of coming to a void, I'll call it, and it was kind of like, and now we have Vietnam. Okay.
Oh,
Vietnam was already started. And my older friends, which I had, you got to remember, I was on a team with older men.
Oh, you were.
And
all these adventures with the 18-year-olds and everything else.
Yeah, they were drafting guys that were 18, 17 that were not voting.
Yeah.
And that's why they moved the age down to 18, because you can't send a boy to war.
Unless he's had some kind of
He's got to have some voting rights.
Yeah.
Right, before you send him to war.
Yeah.
And that hadn't happened when I was a boy.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Oh, no. And there was a lot of pressure. So a lot of my friends, unfortunately, a lot of them passed in Vietnam.
Oh, no.
Shot, killed.
Yeah.
The ones that came back were, it was a bad
PTSD.
And they didn't even know about that at that time. They didn't realize the effects. And a lot of our vets, I'll be honest with you, going back even to the Second World War, or Korea, and beyond, had not factored or isolated that kind of mental anguish, or turmoil, or whatever you walk away from.
Well, I mean, World War I, they called it shell shock.
Okay.
Right, from all the bombardments and everything. Yeah. You're in a foxhole and you're just getting
shell shocked.
Yeah. But they didn't. But okay. So some trauma. No, this is lifelong. It's messed with you.
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing was when you see guys that you've been in boot camp with, and then you've become friends, if you will, with strangers, because your lives depend on each other.
Right.
I think the saddest thing is when you see that person succumb to a hit, a bullet, whatever, explosion. I think that does a number on your spiritual side. Your whole psyche.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, at some point, I think everybody asks the question, where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going?
Yeah.
And so whether you come up with a Christian perspective, an agnostic perspective, like whatever your religious, spiritual belief is, people want to answer those questions. And when you're seeing people die on the battlefield, your friends, and trying to make sense of why you're even there, I would imagine that it's going to screw with
a lot of
that.
anger.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Like you say, why am I here?
It can't be this.
Yeah. It can't. Yeah. Why was I born for this?
Right.
Okay. Oh, okay. Now, I understand the bigger picture. We have to protect our country.
Right.
I'm a major red, white, and blue guy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
My favorite holiday is coming up here at the end of the week.
What's that?
4th of July.
Oh, 4th of July. Yeah. And all kinds of people can have opinions, you know.
Yeah.
All of us have. We're so lucky to live in a country where you can have an opinion.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's protected by the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Guess what? You get to voice that opinion too.
Yeah. And so, Brandon, when I got to college,
yeah,
I was an athlete, you know, and I went to our local 2-year college, and I went, you know, Pancho, you're never going to get out of college. I had this, right?
You're never getting out.
There was this drive home, you know, I was in this old beater car, you know, my first car, and I went, you know, where are you really going? It was my first time of kind of maybe getting to that age where you're doing an accounting on yourself, you know, and back to, you want to build those things as a child. You want to be able to have that independent thinking.
Yes.
You know, not having mom make up all your decisions.
Yes.
Or dad, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But so, you know, there's a point where you do have an accounting, and I went, oh my gosh. And it was a bad feeling, you know what I mean? It was, you know, like, hey, I'm going to fail, you know, and you know, failure wasn't anything anybody really wants to embrace.
No,
right?
yeah,
You know?
it's definitely not something that we like. We like the successes. We like it when it's easy. But
so
you learn the most with the failures.
I got my back then. You got paper and pen and started writing.
Yeah.
And I wrote this letter, you know, to a small men's college that was in Northern California.
Okay.
And Menlo College, and I basically told them, you know, who I was, and you know, I had very few assets.
Yeah.
I wasn't academically challenged, you know, yet.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to study. I did not know how to study.
Yeah.
Because I was busy.
Yeah.
You know, looking at girls and
playing sports,
riding waves,
having fun.
Yeah, having fun. So anyway, I ended up getting accepted at Menlo.
And I love that that's the letter that you sent.
Yeah, it was an I love you. I mean, please help me. Yeah. I'll do anything as you know. And so the admissions director there said, if you come up here and swim and play water polo, you're in.
Fantastic. So you know how to do those two things.
Yeah, the one asset I had, I utilized.
Absolutely.
You know, and it gave me, quite frankly, Menlo, and this is not paid for by Menlo. There were men that were from all walks of life there that had been in academic institutions that knew how to study.
Oh.
So when I came out of my last class, I saw that nobody was out in the, you know, quad.
Yeah.
They were all going to their rooms and starting to study. And I went, well, maybe I should go back there and watch what they're doing. You know? And that was my first really encounter with really what I call deep dive into academics.
Yeah.
You know, really turning the pages and learning the content, you know, and having to perform, you know, against all these guys, you know.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting, I went from like, let's say a C+ average to like maybe a A-, you know,
very
across the board.
Yeah.
But I was, you know, really now I was starting to really get hyper-focused, you know, on, I got to maintain my college units or I'm going to Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
So it's either A or B.
Well, A is pretty good motivation.
Yeah, which is a major. So then I got accepted to Stanford. I was playing water polo at Stanford. I was accepted at Berkeley and at USC. And I had a confrontation with the coach at Stanford. You know? And I think he had a confrontation more with me, you know, that I wasn't going to play that summer. He wanted me to play AU.
Okay.
And I said, no. I said, I already have a plan. I'm going around the United States taking my younger brother.
Yeah.
And he's in trouble, and I'm going to be basically escorting him around the country. No, well, then, you know, you're not going to be on the polo team. I said, hey, listen, I don't remember getting a check yet, you know, from this aquatic program. Do you?
Right.
Are you saying I'm on the payroll? What are we looking at here?
Right.
This is where, you know, we're going to probably part ways.
Yeah.
You know, because.
And you've got other options.
Yeah. And so I ended up, Stanford at the time didn't have undergraduate business school. nor did Berkeley. In Berkeley, they were bombing on campus, and I went, I don't want to be in that environment. So I ended up at downtown Los Angeles at USC, which was really a tough place. I love the academic side, but it was a tough place to go to college.
Well, and that's a shift from Newport. You're going from
the ghetto,
beach town to the
full-blown ghetto.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And when I got there, a guy that I'd been at Menlo with, older brother, was at SC.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was graduating, and he was leaving his job as an analyst for Dean Witter.
Oh.
And he said, Pancho, you have to interview for this job, and you have to wear a suit and tie and
you got to look
hard
the part.
shoes every day. Yeah. But come in an interview and you have the job.
Cool.
So I worked my last 2 years, my junior and senior year, at Dean Witter as an analyst.
That's so cool.
In the stock market, which is kind of really the kind of core backbone of our country.
Oh yeah. Well, and is that what you had decided going into school was I'm going to do something business related, stock market?
Well, okay, so I didn't know yet. Yeah, that's a great point. I had taken your general basics, I call them. Language and math and all the basics. Got those out of the way. So when I got to SC, I was now in my major, and my dad said, you can always use business.
Always.
Even if you want to go live in Nepal in a cave, you need some kind of a business foundation, right? Which was good advice,
Yeah, it's not bad at all. Yeah,
you're right. If you're an artist, whatever it's going to be, you need to know where the decimal points are.
Oh, yeah.
So
how our society works. The dollar is involved.
Yeah, and no matter how freelance you think you are, or easy rider, back in the day, you do have to pay attention to how am I going to buy the next gallon of gas?
Yeah. And there needs to be some future planning there.
Yeah.
And
it's all about your bricks. You got to line up start putting your bricks together.
Very much so.
So I got Brendan, I ended up, a guy on campus had to sell a motorcycle, because his dad didn't want it.
Yeah.
I was making money, so I bought his motorcycle.
Oh, brilliant.
And I had this used car, so I could drive my motorcycle to the stock market in the morning with my suit and tie at 5:00 in the morning, chain it up.
Yeah.
And, we're talking, homeless and the whole giddy up.
Oh, yeah.
It's black. It's dark black.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm saying the sky. We were in darkness at 5:00 in the morning, Southern Cal.
Yeah.
So it was a 2-year grind. Just to get out of SC,
Well, and did you get chances to go back to the beach so you could at least get some of that water? No,
I never left LA.
You were just stuck in LA.
I'm going to get out of this college. It's the last thing I do. And it was really competitive. It was my school was I think in the top 5 in the United States.
Yeah.
So you really have.
And you're at Dean Witter.
Pardon me?
And you're at Dean Witter too. So you're at a very well-known institution, both college and work. You're grinding.
Yeah, it's a grind.
Yeah.
And my neighbors, a guy at my high school that was a younger classmate.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's gone now. He's passed already. But Scotty would always win at Monopoly. Okay. Or what's the world domination, the war?
Risk.
Risk.
Love
Is that the
Risk.
name of the game?
Yeah.
So Scotty, and we were all a year or 2 years older than Scotty.
But he'd still
win every time. God bless him. So Scotty gets up to USC and goes off campus and buys this old Victorian wooden home for $13,000.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe those prices.
And so he's a sophomore, I'm a junior, and I go, Scotty, I'll rent a room from you.
Yeah.
Well, with the mortgage, maybe he put $3,000 down. He had $10,000. He said, just give me $50 a month for your room.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I have in the rooms back then, they built bigger bedrooms, It was the size of this studio.
Yeah.
Twice the size of this studio.
Yeah.
And so all of Scotty's buddies, rented a room from Scotty.
Yeah.
And Scotty paid nothing again.
I was going to say, he knows how to win the game.
He knows how money works. So, and good for him. So he ended up having the home for after he graduated, he gave it to the dental school. I mean, he let them, all the dental students use it. Yeah.
So he's just building equity.
It was a cash cow for Scotty for a long time.
Brilliant.
So anyway, so here we are. I'm now 1970, graduating from USC.
Yeah.
With a degree in finance and a little burnout,
Oh, I'm sure.
I got drafted.
Oh, you did?
And went down for my induction, and they claimed that I had high blood pressure.
No way.
Because I was working full-time and going to college full-time, and I had 2 jobs actually at SC. So anyway, the bottom line is they didn't think I was fit for the job and issued a what they called a 1Y back then. And this would have been, I think this would have been like April. Yeah. And I was going to graduate like in June.
Yeah.
And I had this car. I sold the motorcycle, for $500, kept the 5, sold my car for $2,500.
Yeah.
Put that in the bank. And at the stock market, I would take $100 in the morning that I'd earned.
Yeah.
And gave it to the guys working what they call the floor.
Yeah.
The commodities floor.
Yeah.
Pig's nose, whatever they were, selling.
Yeah.
And I say, guys, do the best you can. Here's my 100.
Yeah.
And they knew how hard I was working. And these were men.
Yeah.
These are guys that had kids.
Right.
Families. And so bottom line is, in the course of 2 years, I had saved $2,500 additional dollars from the floor.
Fantastic.
Yeah, working off the floor and banking that $2,500.
Yeah.
So now I have $5,000, which is like you're a millionaire almost.
Oh yeah, that's good money in 70.
In 1970, and it was all in cash. So
yeah.
Go home, tell mom and dad, guys, I'm getting a one-way ticket to Europe. I'm not coming back for a long, long time.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is not what I expected to come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they had the same face too. They were
my
shocked.
dad was just livid. He goes,
he was livid.
Yeah, what are you talking about? And I said, Dad, and I hadn't learned all the lessons obviously yet.
Yeah. Well, do we ever?
Yeah. You never, but I got a handle on most of them, and now at my age. So I was more the adventurer. I got to say, there was a part of me, maybe it was from being born in Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
Maybe it was coming up and growing up on an island.
Maybe it was that Alaska trip, but you
maybe it was the Alaska
and
trip.
It's probably all of it.
All of it combined. So I end up, a buddy of mine that was in the dental school at SC was now in Stuttgart, Germany, paying off his student loans.
Yeah.
As a dentist for the top brass of the Army.
That's amazing.
So he's in Stuttgart, which is where Porsches and Volkswagens, and that's kind of one of the areas.
It's the automobile spot.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place in Germany.
Yeah.
I write to Jeff and say, hey, I'm coming over. I need a Volkswagen bus.
Yeah.
I don't, a used, my budget's like $600.
Yeah.
And, I'll be there in a month or two.
Now, of all the things, where did you get the idea of Europe? Because you could have, that could have been Argentina again. You could have gone anywhere. Why
I don't
Europe?
know. I mean, let's just say my options, that was the only place I thought to go.
Yeah. Okay. Why not?
So when my dad found, started really, this information started compressing into his mind.
Yeah.
And realizing I was in fact leaving. Yep. And I had a pretty strong personality, I knew how to, to dedicate and discipline myself.
Yeah.
I'd been disciplined through sports.
Yep. And then you had to hunker down on studies.
I had to hunker down and get my A's and B's.
Yeah.
And then work, 8 hours in the morning, then go to school at night. So I had it down. And anyway, the bottom line is I picked Europe, and my dad threw me a curve. He said, Pancho, if you go to this town in Great Britain, in the England area, in this place called Luton,
Okay.
He was in, my dad at this point was in aerospace.
Yeah.
Okay. Rocketry. Okay.
Cool.
To be exact.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had worked in the factory as a little boy too,
Yeah.
Building boxes and watching all the machinists. And so he said, there's an opportunity to get involved with de-icing for the leading edge of wings, for airplanes.
Yep.
And I'm not going to spend, $1,500 or $2,500, whatever, to get over there and go through this. You just came out of the stock market. Would you mind going over and validating, vetting out this company?
Yeah.
Because they will issue me the rights to the Pacific Rim.
Cool.
Okay. For the de-icing.
Right.
Technology.
Right. But you don't know these people from Adams. So
yeah, he thinks, it
Pancho,
could be a
can you
hoax.
check it out for me?
Yeah, a hoax.
Yeah.
I said, okay,
when I make my way over from Germany, I'll check it out.
No, I flew in.
You flew straight in there?
Yeah, I flew straight to London.
Oh, okay.
And that's a kind of, it segues into another story. There was a gal that came and lived at our home from London.
Oh,
that
cool.
complained the whole time that, about how we were, as Americans. And every time I'd come home from college, I'd see her.
Yeah.
And I would go, what's your complaint this week? Right? I mean, geez.
Debbie Downer.
Yeah. So yeah. I went, you know what? I'm going to go visit Elizabeth, who's this gal's name.
Yeah.
When I get to London, I'm going straight to her home.
And complaining about England.
Yeah, I'm just the weather or something.
The weather, the food, everything.
So anyway, I go to Luton, sit down with in their factory.
Yeah.
Saw the diagrams and the whole gist of the de-icing program and
it was legit.
Said, hey, this is it. These guys are in the game.
Yeah.
Pull the trigger.
Cool.
And so he got the de-icing.
All the Pacific Rim.
Yeah, for the Pacific Rim, which is really like,
for de-icing, you're talking.
Yeah, all the way up. And we were in a kind of an aerospace, as you know.
Renaissance.
Yeah, Renaissance.
Yeah.
We hadn't gone to the moon yet.
Right.
So bottom line, packed up my suit, put it in a locker at the Heathrow airport.
Yeah.
And said, I'll see you when I see you. And it was a long-term locker. You could just, pay $1 or whatever and put your clothes in there, take the key.
And it's there for however long. Yep.
And off you go.
Yeah.
And so train to Paris. You could take a train under the channel into Paris. And then train down to Stuttgart.
Cool.
Got my Volkswagen bus. Stripped it out. This is before campers were ever developed. So I took out the middle seat and built in their wood shop on the base a bed.
Brilliant.
Inside.
Yeah.
Went to the foam place, had a piece of foam cut for the wooden bed.
And you make one of the original campers.
Oh, and I was
That's
like
brilliant.
I was so stoked and so proud. And you're all alone. You're kind of,
the world is your oyster at that
you're
point.
kind of, talk about complete freedom.
Oh yeah.
It was and now it's where am I going? Okay.
Right.
And my cousin had qualified to race in the world championship in what they call fleet sailing.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is a boat, particular fleet called the Star class in this case.
Yeah.
And it was all over the world. So boats come from every portion of the world to go to Sweden in this case.
Ah, okay.
And the guy that wins that race, they'll go to his port.
So then he gets home field advantage.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's the honor. And it's a gold star you're able to put on your sail versus a red star.
Yeah.
Now you've won the world.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
My uncle had won the world. So I was familiar with, and my uncle had chased it for like 20 years.
Yeah. And finally got it and got that star.
So anyway, the bottom line is, I spent the better part of a year living in my bus and really exploring, your own self. You know what I mean? It gave me a chance before I got into a career this was not by design, Brandon, but it's just the way it worked out for me. I read Michelangelo's, notes to his family and saw the hardship that he was going through and saw the way people lived, in Yugoslavia.
Yeah. Oh, okay? Yeah.
Lived in Italy and saw the struggles of the world.
Yeah.
And worked my way all the way down into Greece, and then up into Turkey on this little bus.
That's so cool.
My little boat.
Well, and the amount of exposure to just everything you can't trade that for anything. I mean, that's invaluable.
Yeah. People trying to rob me, different things that happen. But I think the biggest mindset for me, and I hope that this story, this podcast helps somebody out there that's watching.
Yeah.
But we all want, I think we all want to achieve, really. I mean, we all want to have a purpose, when you really come down to it, have some meaning.
Yeah.
Why
am I here?
Yeah. And finding that role, finding that slot, on the team or wherever. And I had immense pressure, self-pressure, self-created pressure, to be successful, right? And I was driving. I'll never forget. I was driving up this 2-lane roadway between Athens and Istanbul.
Yeah,
and I was 500 miles from nowhere.
Yep.
Out on this straight road. And I looked over, and on this hillside, there was a hillside, and below the hillside was a cave, and there were 3,000 goats out of, like a mile from me, 2 miles from me.
Yeah.
And I had binoculars. I was, I had my game.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my gosh, I got to pull over. And I pulled off, got on top of the Volkswagen bus. And I sat there for at least an hour and was looking across this prairie, if you will, with nothing on it.
Yeah.
And 3,000 goats and the families I could see coming and going out of the cave and this whole little microcosm of population.
Yeah.
And something right there really clicked for me that, oh my goodness, these people are over here. They could care less about you, Pancho.
Right.
And what successes you ever attain.
Yeah.
And they care less about anything that's going on in the world.
Right.
Really.
Except for their goats.
They're self-contained.
Yeah.
And the kids are playing, they've got their roles, they got their chores.
Yeah.
And Pancho, you got to take yourself less serious. Take it, calm down.
Yeah.
God has a plan. You know what I mean? It's going to roll out. Just kind of ride along.
Yeah.
Just let it unfold. And,
that's
and
so
I was
beautiful.
like so far from anywhere, Brandon.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know how to, when you get these, what I call inner voices, inner thoughts.
Yeah.
You're going, oh boy, that's a wild thought. I can file that in never land, but in fact, that was really kind of
that was a big moment.
It was a realization kind of thing, and I wasn't really religious, I really wasn't,
right. Yeah.
It was just living on the land, living and watching. So basically to fast forward, I came home, I came back.
Okay.
And I played a role up in the factory of my dad's, and I said, this isn't going to be me. I can't
right. Yeah.
Plus or minus 1,000th of an inch. That's just not. So I ended up getting a job with a company named Jostens, which does the diplomas and cap and gowns and college rings. And they had a position 6 months from now. So I had to tread water for 6 months to get there. And I was in their college division in all of Southern California.
And
they never had a college division. It was direct commission.
Oh.
So you get nothing unless you sell something.
Yeah.
Which is kind of right up my alley.
Yeah,
Perform or get off the boat.
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
right.
So while I was starting that, I went, I really have this inner uh, curiosity to see what it's like to leave the coastline and sail out into the open ocean. I mean, away from, hundreds and hundreds of miles, thousands of miles away from land.
Yeah.
And see what that feels like. And so I found...
You didn't get enough of that on the 80-footer or on the 100-footer?
I guess I hadn't. I didn't learn my lesson well enough. So I got pulled back into that vibe. And the man that wrote the book for celestial navigation taught it at San Pedro High School for adults.
Cool.
So now it's January of 72.
Yeah.
1972. And I'm taking this course, and, Mr. Peterson's right there.
Yeah.
And this man in my harbor gets wind that I'm going to become a celestial navigator and goes, Pancho, would you navigate my boat this summer, 1973, to Honolulu on the Transpac? It's the longest ocean race in the world at the time.
Oh, cool.
And there was no satellites, so you needed a sextant and Greenwich Mean Time and all these different factors. And I was 22 now.
Okay, yeah.
And I was going to become the head navigator on a Transpac boat, the youngest navigator at the time to ever navigate to Hawaii.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And he had a bunch of 40-year-olds, on board.
Yeah.
And I didn't really place the responsibility yet, because you're still kind of fairly old. Fairly old enough, right?
Right. Well, and our brains aren't fully developed until 25. So you're still
just writing this, all these different things that are occurring. So I told Danny, I got the math. I understand the lines, the computations. I've never held a sextant in my life. Yeah. Okay. And so, that's a pretty important part of the equation, right? Yeah. Oh, hey, don't worry about it, So he was partly the catalyst that allowed me this opportunity, really.
Yeah.
Very wealthy guy. So back to being naive, again, a little bit naive.
Yeah. Well, but I think that gives us some bravery in places where otherwise we doubt and get in our own ways and overthink it and go, oh, I can't. Well, I've never held a sextant. Whatever the things are, and talk yourself out of it instead of, I'm along for the ride.
I can do this.
I'm going to go do this.
Yeah, I was more of the A personality kind of guy. Yeah. I can do this.
Yeah.
I never came up with excuses or had somebody shadow. And even if they did try and shadow, I would.
You're still.
I just kept going forward.
Yeah.
Right? No. That's not. You know what I mean? You gotta keep pressing.
You gotta keep going.
And that's really been, I think, the main part of my personality is no matter how squashed you get.
Yeah.
No matter how many times we hit the windshield, as a bug.
Yeah.
Get up, shake yourself off, take a shower, whatever, and have a cup of coffee and move forward.
And let's go.
Let's go. There's no time for whining.
Yeah.
That's
a great lesson.
Yeah. And that has proven it's been my kind of go back to.
Yeah.
So that summer, you're leading into it, you're trying to figure out, oh my gosh, okay, now this man has a sextant, I can use his sextant.
Yeah.
I need to make sure it's calibrated. I mean, God, should I go out and maybe try it? Right? I mean, oh my gosh, that'd be a good idea. Yeah. Greenwich time. How am I going to get Greenwich time? Because, that if you're off on time or by the manipulation of the dials on the sextant, you're 800 miles, 1,000 miles away from your real spot.
Oh, yeah. It throws everything
And there's
off.
no satellites to double check.
Right.
So I didn't know all this at the time. I didn't really until I got out in the open ocean. So anyway, preparing for the race, it's on like around the July 4th period.
Okay. Yeah.
On the odd years.
Okay.
So every other year, 70 boats or so line up off of Point Furman, which is where San Pedro is, right where I took the course in the high school.
Yep.
And the gun goes off and off you go.
Brilliant.
And you're sailing across the channel, which I'd done 1,000 times to Catalina.
Yeah.
As a little boy.
Right. You got that part down.
Yeah. And so we go around, we're working up the island, and we go around the west end of the island.
Yeah.
And our compass course is set for like 273, which is a 235, 273. And we're leaving now. And Catalina's getting smaller and smaller and disappears at night. And you're now you're in a whole new world.
Yeah.
You're in, oh my God.
And you've got some increased responsibility versus your other trip over.
Yeah. Now I am the navigator and the driver, because I'd been surfing in my life, and so I knew where what they call the sweet spot of the wave is, where you get the biggest speed.
Right. So
I was a good driver.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I've got, a crew, and I'm the youngest kid. And so so we didn't cover, Brandon, if in the class, if there's cloud coverage. We never covered that.
That seems important.
Yeah. You think that would be something you'd want to tell them?
Yeah, it's not like you're using the stars or anything that you now can't see.
Yeah, so now it's dark, and we know Catalina's right there. So I log, like at 6:30, 7:30, whatever.
Right.
Log it in.
Yeah.
And there are no charts to Hawaii.
Right.
No, it's just blank paper.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing now it's all kind of coming, it's compressing into me now that, oh my gosh, these are dots in the Pacific Ocean.
Yes, they're very easily.
Yeah, you can miss the dots. If you're off, let's say, and I'm just sharing with you, it compounds, they call it.
Yeah.
The air compounds as you go out, because if you're off, it continues to be off, for forever,
Yeah.
And you can miss the Hawaiian Islands.
Yeah.
And now these people have families that are in Hawaii.
Yeah. Waiting for
all of this reality starts to kind of swim. I was swimming in my brain, you know? And so the next day I wake up and it's cloudy and foggy and I'm going, well, okay, well, this isn't going to last long. So they call it dead reckoning. Okay. So I went down below and got a lined pad of paper.
Yeah.
And I filled out 24 hours.
Yep.
For days. And I had the guys, when they were driving, tell me what course they were steering predominantly.
Right.
And roughly what speed.
Yep.
So I have now direction and speed to kind of move my way into where we are.
Right.
And so it was a guessing game, needless to say.
Yeah.
And it was 7 days of hard sailing. You're sailing 24 hours a day at max speed.
Yeah. Yeah, you're racing.
And now the wind is clocked around, they call it, where it's following us. And the waves are now 10 feet, 15, 20 foot waves. And we're flying. And the crew's excited. And there's a lot of, excitement, but also a lot of stress because you're in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
Right. You fall overboard, you're done.
You're done.
Party's over.
Yeah.
So, but all of this time, I'm also in what I call a baking, like a high pressure baking pan, or whatever they're called.
Yeah, because if you're off a degree, you're not hitting the islands.
Yeah, further as you go out, it's further and further that degree.
Right. So
I'm going, okay.
So are you having a good time or are you?
I'm not having a good time.
Okay.
No, I'll be straight out with you. I'm not having a good time.
No.
And I think the realization that of all of it, now I'm now in this vortex, if you will.
Yeah.
I put myself in this vortex.
Yeah.
And by golly, Pancho, you better be doing your computations. And
Yeah.
so, but I couldn't do my computations because I was in this cloud coverage.
Right.
So I had 7 days now of 24-hour direction, compass courses, and rough speed, which is miles.
Right.
And so on the 8th day, the sun came out.
Oh, and you were probably...
We had a celestial, star.
Yeah, something to use. Yeah.
And stars and horizon line. And
you were probably... Did that take off some of that pressure?
I might be able to...
We can get this thing back on course.
Yeah, we can get back here. And I knew that we had probably another 6 days to go.
Okay, yeah.
So let's find ourselves.
Yeah, where are we at?
Yeah.
We're somewhere in the Pacific.
Yeah,
where?
And I was giving the race, somewhere in the Pacific, but having no background, in the race.
Yeah.
Having no, logs, to go from prior navigators.
Yeah.
I never talked to another navigator.
You were doing this blind.
Yeah, I'm talking about, what do you call that? Green? Times 10, Yeah, I mean, less than, maybe a very faint shade of green.
Yes, yeah.
So, it took me about 24 hours.
I was going to say.
Of star sights and then, trying to make sure, are these accurate? Because just because you think you took that star and you're having to bring it from up there down to the horizon line.
Right.
And you're moving the arc along the horizon line. Then you have somebody taking time. And now is he hitting that stopwatch at the right time?
Right.
When I say now.
Is there another half a second in there?
My degree. Now, did he write it down right? I mean, and all of these things.
Yeah.
And then when you get down below, you got 4 hours of computation because you don't.
Right.
And then, guess what? You got to take a shift on the helm. So you're driving now.
Yeah.
So I was
you're
around the clock.
Go.
So maybe it was a day and a half, whatever. Bottom line is, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm right on the distance. The line that I was finding from the computations and the star sites put me right on the same longitudinal line, which are the north and south lines, based off of my direct reckoning from the coast.
That's pretty good.
7 days, 8. Now I'm into 8 days.
Yep.
I was right on that line.
Perfect.
So that
was good.
Synced out, I'll call it, right?
Yep, but east and west?
Now we're going north and south.
Oh, now north and south.
North and south.
Yeah.
And so we had, leaving the coastline, you have what they call a long a shoreline current going from north to south.
Yeah.
Pushing you south, even though your compass course is going, what you think is, let's say, to the end of Catalina, you're actually, if you don't keep adjusting, you're going to go south.
Right.
Catalina.
Yeah.
And now you're in the open ocean. So now
it's really
this
pushing you.
It's pulling you. So we were 60 miles, which isn't very bad.
Okay.
After 8 days, we were 60 miles south of our actual, where I thought we were over here, but in fact, we were over here.
That's pretty good.
So I made a little, okay, now we're over here.
Yeah.
And again, this is where your faith and your trust, kind of, oh my gosh, this is amazing that you can see into the heavens and tell where you are on earth.
Yes.
There was something going on there that I still probably don't have complete understanding.
Well, I talk about that with people all the time, how we're so disconnected to the stars because of all the light pollution, because we head inside, we're on our phones, we're doing whatever.
Yeah.
But for the entirety of human history, we've looked to the stars.
Yeah.
And especially when we're on the water.
Yeah.
That's how we navigate.
Even on land.
Or even on land.
Oh, I remember that star. I need to go over here. This is how I got to that town.
Yeah.
And of course that was hundreds of years before we were born.
Right.
But I didn't realize the importance of stars and the sun.
Yeah. Oh man. But after 7-8 days and you have the heavens open up and all of a sudden you can place where you're at again. That'll.
And it's imaginary because all you're seeing is 360 degrees of horizon line.
Yeah.
And waves, and there's no land.
Yeah, no.
So for a lot of humans, their weakness is, and we're all in the boat together.
Oh, yeah.
I still consider myself in that boat.
Yeah.
But some people take that better than others.
Yes.
Not seeing land.
Yeah.
So I had guys now coming around my charts and like sharks, they would go out and go over there, and I'd see them. They'd go over to the bathroom, then come back and look at my chart. Well, my chart was just blank because there was nothing there.
So they're no solace for them.
Oh my God, what's this guy doing?
Yeah.
He's lost.
You should have scared him and just said, I have no idea where we're at.
I did that later on. Yeah, okay. This was my first transpac. Later transpacs, I would kind of bend their brain, brain a little bit. Guys, what I would tell them is that we're like 5 days.
Okay. Yeah.
That we really were like 3 days. And they would start bubbling, because, God, I've been racing so hard. I mean, why are we making headway?
Yeah.
And
then this surprise comes a couple days early.
Yeah. So I'd surprise them. But this was my first race. And I was so grateful that I was starting to get traction.
Yes.
With the stars and the moon and feeling comfortable and confident that I was in the waters that I thought I was in.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would talk to the owner who was on board.
Yeah.
I said, Danny, tomorrow we should see Molokai. We're going to see Molokai right off our port bow.
Cool.
And it's going to be about 4:00 in the afternoon. Based on my computations and how fast we're moving, I think we should be seeing Molokai.
Yeah. What happened at 4 o'clock the next?
Sure enough, the clouds started forming on the horizon. You see this, they're down on the water, and you're going, God, that's a weird, weird looking, because the earth is curvature. You can't see.
Right.
A volcano. You can't see because you're too far back.
Right.
And as God would have it, we came up over this, this curve, the curvature.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you could see Molokai and the one volcano at the end. And it's a flatter island, so it's easy to miss. But sure enough, Danny goes, no, because he had been there before several times.
Yeah.
And he
recognized, his first rodeo.
He goes, Pancho, this is Molokai.
Yeah.
Which is like at that point, like, you've been basically sitting on what I call like the stove, the hot pan, let's say for 13, I think this was a 13-day passage.
Okay, yeah.
And for a kid, I mean, for anybody really, if you're in that position, you're in a little bit of a pressure.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the relief that probably poured over
like
you,
unimaginable, because it wasn't Tahiti or it wasn't China.
Right, it's where you were trying to go. You made it.
Yeah, we're going to Molokai, and then from Molokai, which is a neighboring island of Oahu.
Okay, yep.
And we're going to finish off Diamond Head.
Yeah,
is the finish line.
Yeah.
And so you have to go between those two islands.
Okay.
Which Danny had and the other crew members had many experiences with. So the ball now, the pressure, the responsibility was really on them now.
Yeah.
I've got you here.
We did it.
Yeah, we're here.
You guys wrap it up.
On the island and we finished, and it turned out we ended up getting like 5th out of 75 boats.
That's super impressive.
Yeah, it was radical, because Danny said, Danny at his age, had done it. And he really, I don't think it was a high priority for him to get a trophy, but he did.
Yeah.
And what happened, Brandon, in the big scope of all of the transpackers, is that as a navigator, your name goes up and down like a stock.
Oh,
okay? Depending on your finish.
Yeah.
And I never, that was just another factor I never put together.
Right. Yeah.
That wasn't even part of in my mind.
Yeah.
But because of the place that we ended up finishing, my value went up.
Yeah.
And so I got recognized as a navigator to be on boats. This guy needs to be on. And other owners went, hey, I want Pancho on my boat.
Yeah, I know I want Pancho. Yeah. And I'm going to pay him more.
Well, there was no pay.
Oh, there's no pay.
No pay.
Okay. Okay.
So this is a Corinthian activity, no professional at that time. It's turned into high end. And so, I ended up to kind of roll out. I ended up doing so I'd done the one passage. Oh, we get there. And we're partying. Obviously.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah.
And we had sponsors, that restaurants that come down and they bring, Lay's and it's just a fanfare.
It's a party. Yeah, yeah.
The boat's almost sinking. There's so many people on it. So during this drunken expedition of sailors and wives and gals and so forth, Danny goes, Pancho, would you like to take the boat home? Take this boat.
Yeah.
I'll give you a credit card. Here's my credit card.
Yeah.
And you own it. Just take it back to San Francisco. I got a what they call a stag cruise up in, and I'm 22 and I'm sure I had stitched this word sucker on the forehead of my, and I was so naive again that I went, and you're not quite, you're not all, and I went, sure. I'll take that on.
Well, okay. Now here's my question, because if I'm just putting myself in your shoes, trying to, I don't know why is that a sucker moment? Because that seems like a good time.
It seemed like this is going to be good, but where I'm going, and I don't know what your time's like. How are we doing?
So it's 3:12, and we've got however long you want.
Okay. Bottom line is, maybe I was still daft from the race, too.
Well, and there's a drink or two in there too.
Yeah, and a couple Mai Tais, and so I agree, and I attach myself to his credit card and spend the night on the boat, and gather a couple of guys for the next few days.
Yeah.
And we sail to Maui on Danny's boat.
On Danny's boat.
He takes off, goes back to, like most owners.
Yeah.
Back.
I'm taking the first flight back.
Yeah. And I'm in first class.
Yeah.
And poor Pancho has no idea what he's got himself into.
Shoot, you just navigated over there and got fifth place.
It's about a 3,000 mile adventure race.
Yeah. So getting home's no problem.
Well, there's where this really changes, and this is really back to where you're really tested, on the truth, really on the truth of what really danger is, and you think, oh gosh, the freeway, it can't be dangerous out there.
Right. I drive that every day.
Yeah.
I got this figured out. Yeah. And that's when it hits you.
Yeah. Or, a big truck hits you or broadsides you, and then you realize, oh my gosh, this is like life and death.
Yeah. There's always variables.
So to get back to the fun part, we sail over to Maui, and there was a big salsa cup, they call it, tequila, some tequila brand sponsored it,
Sounds good. Yeah.
And just a massive drunk, for like a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And I could care less, because I'm like on an e-ride, at Disneyland.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a credit card. I'm 22.
You're on cloud nine.
I've got a race boat at my access. I'm living on it.
And you're in paradise.
And I'm in paradise.
Life is
and
good.
I'm young and strong. And so.
And there's probably some girls around.
Oh,
yeah.
So all these guys are real serious. There's some, there's people that are serious about their racing.
Yeah, of course.
And they weren't on the Transpac. They were just guys that are what I call Sunday sailors, let's say.
Yeah.
And so I organized getting a 50-gallon drum from the local hardware, a brand new one, put it in the cockpit, lashed it in, and then we got, 20 half-gallon rum.
Oh my gosh.
Half gallons of rum, and filled that sucker up with pineapple and cutting. The gals were cutting people from the community
from the island
had come down, said, "Hey, can we go on the race with you?" Totally. Who cares, right?
Yeah,
we're gonna have fun, right?
We're gonna have a good time.
I got ammo in this 50-gallon drum, and so the ladies all put it together. The concoction. So all the day sailors, I call them, are going out of the harbor, and they're all fancied up, and they're going on down, and all of the spectators are on docks, kind of in that. God, I wish I could be on one of those boats.
Yeah.
And we only have like maybe 12, 15 people at the time, on this boat.
Yeah.
So I said, let's go down and pick up everyone that's on a dock and put them on board.
Oh, jeez.
So, people from what they call up country, up by Haleakala Crater and all over the island are now jumping on.
Oh, they want to be on the party boat.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't care. We're just going to go out and sail, have fun, race.
Yeah.
We'll be there. But the conversation for years, even afterwards, when I'd go down to the islands, where there was this guy named Pancho that picked us all up, and he might have been a plumeria gardener from Kula, And I go, well, that was me. I mean,
you were a legend, a local legend.
I didn't have any idea.
Oh gosh,
so
so funny.
We just had a ball, and some guys that had grown up in my town were living on Maui.
Oh, cool.
Because they had joined the National Guard to get out of Vietnam.
Yeah.
So they were still on the island 5-6 years later.
Yeah.
I'm now down there with this boat. And one of the guys goes, Pancho, see the Haleakala Crater up there, which is on one side of the island?
Yeah.
I know how to do this. Why don't we go up there and hike through the Haleakala Crater? And the girls can drop us off on the rim.
Yeah.
They call it. And you switch back in to the bottom of the Haleakala Crater. And then we'll walk across the length of the crater and go out. They call it Galpo Gap down to Hana.
Yeah.
And I go,
what could go wrong?
Yeah. I need some land time. I've been on the ocean. Okay.
Yeah.
So we do that in this, this summer.
Yeah.
Silver swords that only bloom once in like a lifetime were blooming.
Oh.
People normally make that walk, that trek in 3 days.
Okay.
And so they stay in the crater overnight.
Yeah.
So we were walking past families and couples
that were
been there one day.
Yeah.
And then we went into the next batch that were there 2 days. And we got to the end of the crater. They had been there 3 days.
You did it.
And they were saying, where'd you come? When did you come in? That would be a normal, hi, hi, Brendan. When did you come into the crater?
Right.
Well, we came in at about 6 o'clock this morning, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. We started.
You guys cruised.
Yeah. So my calves.
Are still sore.
All the way home from Honolulu on the boat.
Yeah.
We're just splitting.
No.
Oh yeah, from this hike.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Yeah,
and Greg's not with us anymore either. So
no.
Yeah. Anyway, the bottom line is, the fun that was in Hawaii is just immense.
Oh yeah.
But the responsibility was like an hourglass was starting to come back.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? That Pancho, you're done now.
Yeah.
You've done all these things. You need to get a crew, and we're going to sail this boat back to San Francisco.
And how much of the crew that you went over with was still?
None.
Oh, no, so you had to find a crew.
Yeah. This is all different.
Whoa.
Yeah, nobody's on the boat that came down.
Oh, man.
On the race.
Okay.
And quite honestly, looking back, unless you were really in tip-top shape, you couldn't to sustain that kind of sailing. I would never do it again.
Right. Yeah.
I'd never advise somebody to do that again.
Right. But you're a young strapping
I'm a kid.
Man.
I had the opportunity. My first Transpac. I'm a navigator.
And you just had a good time on the island. You're ready to go, and you got the responsibility.
Building the story, right?
Yeah.
And so we had this boat, Brandon. I haven't said it's only 43 feet.
I was wondering. That's what
this
I. This entire
it's
time.
It's a fiberglass now. Not wooden. Which means it's a lot more tender to a wave. So when a wave hits it, it's bending.
Yeah.
Where a wooden boat pierces through.
Yeah.
Pierces through the wave.
And I take it there's pros and cons to both of those.
Yeah, there are, but size makes a big difference.
Oh yeah.
43 is too small.
Yeah, that's
to come home. A lot of owners would put them on freighters.
Oh really?
Yeah, put them up on a big cradle.
Yeah.
And then just ship it home.
Yeah, because now you're on a big old ship.
Well, there's nobody on board.
Yeah.
we'll pick it up in LA.
Yeah, no problem.
This one, though, we got a bladder with fuel strapped to the foredeck, fuel being diesel.
Yeah.
And got the food, strapped it down, reefed it, did the whole giddy up.
Got it all
home.
set.
And
refilled the rum.
No.
Right.
And that's a good question.
Yeah.
None of the boats I sailed on, we allowed liquor.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because we call it a dry ship.
Yeah,
just
it's the easiest way to go overboard.
There's so many things that are going on out there that if I asked you to do something, your tolerance to alcohol could be different than maybe an old sailor that could drink a half gallon.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's say you untied a line that was wrong.
Yeah.
And this guy over here lost his arm in the open ocean.
Right.
And we don't have a hospital out there. We don't have.
No, you just lost.
Yeah, this guy's lost his arm. Now, we're in a major emergency.
Yeah.
So I always favored
dry
no
boats.
alcohol.
Yeah, that's
no
a good
alcohol.
call.
And in this case, you didn't have time. In this particular passage that we were about to go on.
Yeah.
You didn't have a second for
No.
alcohol. You wanted alcohol, but it was, we left from Lahaina and went out between Maui and Molokai, out through that channel.
Same one that you came in. Yeah.
You're going to go straight north, as close to north as you can go.
Okay.
On the magnetic compass. And we started out in like 20-foot, because you got to remember these waves are coming from Alaska.
Right.
San Francisco, they're formulating up in there.
Yeah.
And Hawaii, these are dots. So
right.
The waves are going further on.
Oh yeah.
So 20-foot seas, our boat was, let's say, and then they went to 30, and our boat was like a twig in this wave.
Yeah.
And having surfed in big waves,
right,
I could see the personality of the wave. I could read the personality. This wave is going to break.
Right.
I need to pull the bow of the boat up into the wave.
Right.
And punch through it right now.
Yeah.
Or the wave was going to take the bow, and we're going to they call pitch pull and roll down into the trough of the wave.
And then you're going to get...
And we all are going to go to Davy's locker.
Yeah.
Like right now.
Right.
So there's all these decisions that you're having to make, like
split second
from experience, from your background. One of the boys, I had I think I had an 1820. Of course, I'm really old at 22,
yeah.
But I was let's say I was a little more immature, I guess. I must have been somehow. And this young man said, "I can't drive anymore. I'm not driving." And I think we only had a crew of like 6, maybe 7 coming home. It's called a scab, a scab crew. You just slap together and off you go.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I had a sit down kind of with Jesus.
Yeah,
moment,
I was going to say,
like,
come
hey,
to Jesus moment with him.
Talk.
Yeah.
I'm doing the navigating now, and I'm having to take star shots and at all different times, morning at night.
Yep.
And I'm running the galley, and I'm running decision making, and I'm running a full shift.
Right.
I can't sustain another hour at the helm.
No.
I'm fatigue as well.
Yeah, this guy's got to pick up his weight.
My game on later on.
Yeah, for sure.
I got to, try and manage this expense of physical activity.
Yes.
So yeah, a lot of those moments going north, and in this case, we did not know where the high was. So we are now in 40-foot seas going out.
Oh.
And so the boat now is in a 40-foot boat in a 40-foot sea is just the same.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a 100-foot boat.
No.
And it's plastic. So you're getting slapped around, pushed around a lot by these massive swells.
Yeah. In any of this, because I've got confidence coming from you. Are you scared in any of this? Because it feels like maybe some of the other young men were.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's put it this way. It had my full attention. I wasn't kind of like a bully on the block.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was giving every wave all the respect I could, because I knew any one of these waves could take this boat away.
Yep.
And in fact, that summer, there were 3 boats returning from Hawaii, and I knew each of the drivers and navigators. We're all navigators.
Right.
And that's typically who brought them home.
Yeah.
And I said, why don't we have a radio appointment every night.
Good idea.
At 6 o'clock at night.
How are you guys doing?
And I mean, where are you? What are you experiencing? Goodbye.
Yeah.
Okay, I know he's over here.
Yeah.
Give me your latitude and longitude.
Yep.
And I'll give you my latitude and longitude. And so we had a little bit of what I call a radio appointment every evening.
Yeah.
And then it was about 7 days up the line that this one boat didn't report in.
Oh, no.
And it never came back.
No.
It was either hit by a freighter.
Yep.
Which
or
a freighter wouldn't even know they hit it.
Yep.
Or they got one of those rogue waves
and
where
took them out.
They made it was operator error.
Yep.
And it never came back.
Oh,
so
no.
I'm now, going, and so these waves became they were like your enemy, if you will.
Yeah.
They were daunting.
Yeah.
And so now I started extrapolating and figuring out, mathematically how long this voyage was going to take.
Well, yeah, because are you still heading north at this point?
Yeah, we're going straight north, and what happens is that high pressure that I had spoken about.
Yep.
We kept thinking, hopefully we're going to get in it and it'll calm down.
Right, and then and does it go clockwise?
Yes.
Yep. So then you get to the north of it, let it swing you around.
Back in.
Yeah.
Well, we never saw the high. So we were at a latitude about Oregon.
Okay.
Because then you can make the turn back over and you're going to get knocked down into San Francisco.
Right, right.
So unfortunately, the Farallon Islands are off the harbor.
Yeah.
And I told the guys, I said, guys, I got to go down and get some sleep. I mean, I'm just done.
Yeah.
Midnight, there's going to be I think we're on a line for the Farallones.
Yeah.
And come down and get me.
Yeah.
When you see a light, you come down and get me.
Yeah.
I'll make the decisions.
Right.
Yeah. So, bang, I hear this yelling and screaming, and I'm you get a sixth sense, when you're out there. Yep. This is your life on this boat.
Yeah.
And I was on deck in seconds, and Brandon, I looked up, and I could see the light was at a 45 degrees from the cockpit.
You're on it.
We're too close to it.
Yeah.
And they didn't. The open sea can do funny things.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're happy you see a light because, oh my God, there's land. You know, or you're not. Some people aren't capable of putting it all together.
Right.
I recognized immediately we were going to go aground on this island.
I was going to say, you guys are going to hit this
thing. It's a rock solid, sharks infested. I mean,
oh, no.
And I grabbed on, and it was a tiller rather than a wheel.
Okay.
Steering mechanism. And I ran to the back, grabbed onto that tiller, and shoved it. So we'd be going 180.
Yeah.
And praying that I wasn't going to hit something in the arch.
Oh,
in the arch.
Yeah.
And we came back. And we, obviously we had come in on that line. So now I did a 180.
Right.
And we're going back away from the island now towards Honolulu. And the guys are going, what are you doing?
What are you doing? We're going the wrong way.
Yeah. I go, guys, don't say anything. Right. You just, calm down.
Talk about blood pressure.
Yeah. I said,
we
almost were on that rock.
Yeah. And some of you were going to get
eaten. And if I take an hour going that way, I don't care how long I'm going to go around this island. So we went like an hour back, an hour south.
Yep.
And then got back on a different course, around this Farallon Island.
Jeez.
So to kind of bring this kind of up to a culmination, even though I really didn't know the Bible at the time.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I didn't know the front from the back, the top from the bottom. I would get down at night through the course of this passage and get on my hands and knees, literally.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen that done before. I knew how to pray.
Yeah.
And I would pray to God. I actually would pray that, Lord, I have made a horrible mistake. I never should have come out here,
Yeah.
And if you could find any way to find land for us,
Yeah.
I will always be grateful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I probably said a little white lie. I'll never come back out
Yeah.
here again, right?
You probably knew that was.
But I did do. I did do another 50,000 miles.
Did you really?
Yeah, after that I did.
That's
in the open ocean because the owners wanted me to navigate.
I was gonna say.
So I was at the beginning of another 15 years of hard ocean going sailing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and more experiences.
Yeah. Well, and I think I said this to you our first call. There's no atheist in a foxhole, right? I mean, it's that principle. It's you find your maker.
And all of us have, even the folks that are listening to this, have had those moments where you come to an intersection.
Yeah.
Where things have gone wrong for you.
Yeah.
Whether and they're not necessarily life choices. It's just like the weather. You didn't know it was going to rain and have lightning, and when you got into a relationship,
right?
Or when you had this situation, this career job, that 20 years later, the guy, took the business and all the money.
Right. Now you got nothing.
And you got nothing, you know. So I think now, in my past middle 70s, I realize that life is so much easier knowing that there is a God.
Yeah.
And that there is somebody that loves you.
Yeah.
All of us, sinners, prisoners, the whole human race.
Yeah.
Wherever you are in the world.
Yeah. God loves you.
And that's a feel good, that's a feel good moment when you know that.
Yeah.
Internally, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And so how we were introduced is I play golf with this younger guy.
Yeah, with Aaron, yeah.
And we go down to Circling Raven, which is a wonderful golf course. And on our way down one day, I was telling him a little bit about this sailing adventure. Then he met you.
Yeah.
And he said, you got to talk to Pancho.
Yeah, I'm glad he connected us. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's what a cool adventure.
Yeah.
And then you did 50,000 miles more.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't learn the lesson. You want to get punished again.
My favorite is lessons will be repeated until learned.
Yeah. It took a long time. And I had kids later, and so I stopped the sailing. But, I think the biggest message is that we're lucky. We're lucky to be here.
Yeah.
We're lucky to live in America, as I found when I was, in that searching period in Europe.
Yeah.
I realized how much opportunity America gives all of our citizens.
Oh, yeah.
And non-citizens to be, there's job opportunity here.
Oh, yeah.
There's creativity here.
It's a land of opportunity.
It's a land of opportunity. And when I got home, Aaron and I kissed the ground.
I was going to say, you get into San Francisco Bay, you get on the...
Every time I got to land, I kissed the ground,
You did.
And I'm grateful, honestly, because I've lost a lot of my buddies, some in Vietnam, some, just by health, through the years.
Yeah.
And, you can only, when you get up the ladder, so to speak, and you're looking back down the different pegs you were on, you realize, God, I was really lucky that I didn't fall off the top of the mast in that race.
Yeah.
Or I didn't hit the Farallon Islands,
Right.
We could have hit the islands and we would have all been shark bait.
Different story.
Instantly.
Yeah.
So, things, we do have somebody looking over our shoulder.
Yes.
Some kind of a spirit or, like the pirates had a parrot, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But, I'm grateful that I had all the experiences.
Yeah.
And that when I finally get to my maker, it wasn't, I lived 2 or 3 full lives.
Yeah.
And that's really what this is all about
it is
being grateful.
Well, and gratitude, openness to it. That's one of the things that I keep hearing in your story is, hey, there's another adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Even though you didn't know the total
right. Yeah.
Volume of the adventure at the time. But I think when we launch out and try things, it's kind of the spirit of America, isn't it? Kind of, people came here.
Oh yeah.
From the old country, I mean,
not knowing right? Nothing other than there's opportunity.
Yeah. And the hope. There was hope.
Right.
There is a better life.
Yeah.
And I think that's all we have in our country and our heritage is that our people were built on hope and faith.
Well, I mean, you talked about it earlier with your lineage, right? You never know what lessons. It could be your mom in a convent. It could be her mom doing but we end up carrying those pieces because it influences them, which influences the way they parent us, and that just keeps going down. And so, if you're American, somewhere in your lineage, you had that spirit of adventure
and
hope.
And hardworking.
Yeah.
These were all hardworking, God-fearing people.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. I mean, depending on how far back, everything from, not only from the hardship of not having electricity and water and hospitals. I mean, right? I mean, all the accidents that happen in the field.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, we live in a wonderful time.
A wonderful country.
Yeah.
My scout leader instilled in me, one of my favorite things he would say is everything testifies there's a God. And that could be while you're out on the ocean looking and the clouds part and you see the stars.
Yeah.
You go, yep.
Yeah.
That creator loves me.
Yeah.
It could be you turn the boat just in the right moment and you don't crash into the islands.
Right.
It's holding your baby for the first time. It's just looking outside in the morning and there's some deer out there and this is a beautiful thing.
No, and you're right. Taking those moments.
Yeah.
And our life really is a kaleidoscope of moments.
Oh, that's so beautifully said.
Right.
It really is. Yeah.
Like little snippets, of, oh, wow, that was a really cool moment, and if we all go back through our life, there are those, what do you call it? Milestones, those moments where you go, this might be the best time of my life.
Yeah.
My finest moment, they call it.
Yes.
And sometimes we forget those fine moments, you know what I mean? And so when we get into what I call the doldrums, of life, where the valley is, let's say, of darkness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or where it's not happy or it's not exciting. You've got to recapture and relive those moments.
Yeah.
When you had a moment, right?
Right.
A happy moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Get that hope to return. Yeah.
Yeah. Live off that,
Yeah.
For the moment,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, it's the classic, with 4 kids, I'm reminded constantly of, it passes by so fast. You got to enjoy every moment. And I'm in the middle of trying to do the bedtime routine that we've established that the kids should know what it is, but yet somehow their brains go away at nighttime. And I'm doing this again for the upteenth time.
Yeah. 485.
Right. Oh my gosh. But and you described it as Star Wars earlier, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, you're dodging bull. You're just trying to navigate. Yeah. It's
Helter
madness.
Skelter,
But it's those smelling the roses moments and then recalling those when you are in the thick of
and
whatever the madness
I'll kind
is.
of leave on this,
please.
because you're in the middle of your, 4-ring circus.
It's at least a 4-ring circus. Yeah.
And trying to herd cats.
Definitely herding cats.
And I believe that having children is probably the greatest thing that we do as humans.
I do too.
Even though there are times like I was out on the boat. How did I get here? Why did I make this decision?
Yeah. And instead of getting woken up, running up, and you're about to hit islands, it's a kid that just puked. And
or you wake up at 2 a.m, he'd flash floods on you, and you go, well, you know what? I'm not going to take my clothes off. I'm just going to get in the shower with him and me, and just we'll wash each other off.
Exactly.
Let's start with that.
Yeah, we'll start with that.
So, but when I was later having children, and this man, and I lived in a really microcosm community.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I knew everybody there.
Yeah.
And it was not a through streets because the hospital was just north of me.
Okay.
And this is in Laguna Beach, California.
Yep. Okay.
And the day I brought my first daughter home,
yeah,
I was up on a porch. She was a touch jaundice, so
okay.
a little orange.
Yeah.
And my wife was still in the hospital because of the C-section.
Yeah.
And I went, and I looked down, and here's this elderly man who was actually older than me now.
Hey, yeah, okay.
Which is kind of rare. You know, and I looked down and I went, that's weird. In my mind, I went, I can't believe I don't recognize that guy. You know, he's moving slow. He had a wife, you know, his wife was next to him.
Yeah.
And she was having difficulty, you know, on this little alley.
Yeah.
And he had his hands behind her and he was helping her along.
Yeah.
And my daughter, Elise, gurgled or something. And he looked up and it was like a God moment. I mean, it was one of those moments.
Yeah.
And I looked down and I said, well, you know, yeah, I brought my baby home, you know, and I'm like 38. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm going, you know, I have to break the ice. I mean, here's this guy that knows a lot more than me.
Yeah.
And he looked up at me and he was still holding on to the back of his wife.
Yeah.
And he said, enjoy her while you have her, because she won't be with you very long.
Oh.
And it was like somebody basically taking a bullet
and just
right in between the eyes.
Yeah.
You know? And it sucked the air out of me. Now, this is now, I got to remind you, I've done 50,000 miles in the open ocean. I'm seaworthy.
Yeah.
And I've been through all the storms of that life.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing's phasing you at this point.
And I'm looking at him and and you know me, I had to ask, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You know, and
clarify, please.
Yeah. I mean, give me a little more than that, you know, that one sentence. And he goes, well, I'm in my 90s and I had my family when I was in my 30s, and that lasted till my mid 50s, and they're gone. So let's say at 60, they were gone.
Right.
So I've had 30 years of the other side.
Yeah.
To return to who I was.
Right.
You know, because as a parent, there's so many activities you don't want to do.
Oh, yeah.
Like basically cleaning out the bilge, you know, doing the night hour.
Can I compare those two from here on out?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm taking
or mopping the floor in the kitchen. You know,
yeah.
There's things you don't want to do. But I mean, in all seriousness, it's a 20-year, 25-year give back.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that you
sure.
dedicate your entire, every day, every moment, every thought, every income, every piece.
You're not the important
20
one.
years. Yeah, you're in the back of the bus.
Yeah.
That child is in the front of the bus, and you're protecting them in every dimension you know how.
Yeah.
You know, but it does end. And that's what this man was sharing with me.
Yeah.
And it just floored me, Brandon. It just, I looked to the eyes of what this man was saying. And now that I'm on the other side, and I've been on the other side for 20 years now.
Yeah.
It is returning to yourself again.
That's such a cool way of saying it.
And new things, you know, you're kind of reinventing yourself.
Right.
Right. You don't have to be
who you were before.
Yeah. You don't have to be that guy.
No, in fact, you shouldn't be, because you've learned some stuff along
the way.
You've already
been him or her.
Yeah. You get, well, and you've said a few lifetimes, right? You've lived a few lifetimes, and that's how you do it.
Keep progressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to finish on a plug for 3 years ago. We had moved. We're living in Coeur d'Alene area now, Post Falls in North Idaho, and a man approached me to run the Special Olympics Idaho up here in the north as a coordinator for events.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I'm going, well, you know, I don't really have a lot going on. I think I could probably do that.
Why not?
Yeah. So I've done it now for 3 years, and we have our main event is a golf tournament in July.
Cool.
July 25th.
It's coming up.
Yeah. And giving back, you know, as we age over, you know, giving back to a community of people. We have 350 athletes up here with parents and coaches, and I'm not holding really the hard role of coaching and going to events and all of those things. I'm just their fundraiser. Yeah. I'm out there trying to get sponsors and golfers and corporate people like that to join in.
So how do people find out more information?
I have a link.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Do you know what the link is off the top of your head?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's called Special Olympics Idaho ticketgoat.com.
Perfect.
Yeah. And they'll take them right to our landing page.
Awesome.
And we have a place for sponsors and a place for golfers. And we created a component where we take 200 numbered balls this has not been done, but we've numbered the balls.
Yeah.
And we sell them for $10 a piece.
Cool.
And that can be done on this link.
Okay. Yeah.
And we assign those donors a ball. So if they get one ball, they get one number.
Yep.
10, they get 10 numbers.
Yeah.
And Avista, which is our utility company, has a big truck with a big lift. They come and gather the 200 balls in a crate and dump them on a flag. And so they cascade out of this basket.
That's great.
Yeah, and it's really quite the day. On the 25th, if you're not doing anything, come over.
Come on over.
So yeah, and then 3 of them will be identified, and they'll get about a $250 overnight stay at one of the resorts.
I love that.
Yeah.
What a fun way of doing it.
Yeah.
And so that was Special Olympics Idaho.ticketgoat.com.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we'll direct people over there.
That'd be awesome.
Which golf course?
We're playing at the Links over in Post Falls.
I love that
out
course.
in the corner over there.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it's a Scottish Links setup.
Which is great because I'm sending the ball all over the place. So as long as I can navigate it, I'm good.
So on that score, what happens is we play a scramble.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So it's the easiest format.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it.
And all the hacks can come out and bang it around.
Yeah.
But one player will be the best ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other people collect their ball and put it where his
and come up to
or hers is.
Yeah.
And they keep doing that around the course.
What a blast.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's July 25th.
July 25th. So if you have your people, you're welcome to join in. But I don't want to hear any complaints.
Yeah, no. A day on the course. How can you complain? That's the best spot to be.
No whining.
Yeah, no whining. What did Tom Hanks say in that movie? There's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in golf either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had quite a few.
Yeah, he's
takeaway.
Yeah, he's had some good ones.
The chocolates and things like that.
Yeah, and life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, and that is beyond true, right?
It's beyond true. I was expecting caramel. Why is this a cherry cordial? Okay. All right. Fine. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, then that's a beautiful note to end on. I do have one final question. It's my favorite final question for everybody.
Okay.
If you had a megaphone that could reach everybody on the planet, what's your message to them? Oh.
Well, I think the big thing is to really in the morning thank God. I really do. I know it's hard, especially when you're in the mix like you are, or you're in a trough, of life. It's hard to gather your spirit, and make it whole. Right?
Yeah.
And I find that the best way is to connect back to our Creator.
Yeah.
Right. And thank Him.
Yeah.
And if you start your morning thinking, and being grateful. And I'm talking about, for me, down to a bar of soap. Thank you for the bar of soap.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, thank you for this floor. And the glass that separates me from the rest of the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? While I'm in the shower. You know? Every little piece, because it puts my heart in a place that is better than complaining.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you get in the habit of finding the complaints or the you know what I mean? The downside, I call it.
Yeah.
Your life becomes kind of dismal.
Yeah. Right? It sure does.
You're living under a cloud.
Right.
And it's raining constantly on you.
Yeah.
And I find people that are thankful, right? find some form of happiness during their day. And we don't have, another thing is, I'll be straight out, there's not that many days. You think that life is so long. They're really, it's sad, but it's pretty short.
Yeah.
It's a pretty short experience.
Yeah.
And so you want to capture the sunlight, you know what I mean? And I'm not talking about physical sunlight.
No, but
the happiness.
Yeah.
The joyful part of life.
Yeah. Be grateful.
And you are in charge of that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You are 100% in charge of whether you have a good day or a funky day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is very true.
Yeah.
And it's all about what you choose.
Yeah. So that's kind of my message back to the crew.
I love it. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So cool.
There's a couple other links that I might share with you if you have.
Please.
Yeah. After we get done with the broadcast.
Yeah, we'll get them added.
I call it a broadcast, but it's
it is.
It's a podcast.
It's all the same. It gets broadcast out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope you all have enjoyed it. I know I have.
Pancho, this has been an absolute treat and a blessing. So thank you for coming, and thank you all for joining us.
Enjoy yourselves.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Main Character Podcast. If you dig the content, please click that follow button. And if you found today's guest inspiring, please share this episode with someone you think will benefit from it. If you'd like to be a guest on Main Character Podcast, reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, where I'd also appreciate a follow. All links can be found at my website, coachwithbrandon.com.